go around. And
sale la cabeza. El otro día estaba yo ahí.
Hello?
Richard's here.
Okay, there we go.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi. I see 3 council members. I will be right back. I'm going to sign in a little bit differently. I will be back very momentarily. Great. Sorry about that. Excellent. Here we go. And the vice mayor did advise me that he will be a bit late to the meeting. However, we are now, it is 6:38 p.m. and I am hereby calling to order the successor agency meeting to the San Fernando Redevelopment Agency. Roll call, Ms. Fritz.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Board Member Mendoza.
You're on mute, board member.
Sorry, present.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Present.
Board Member Ballin.
Present.
Vice Chair Pacheco is running a little bit late. He's absent at the time. And Chair Fajardo.
I am here. We do have a quorum. I will move to approve the agenda for the successor agency meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ballin. Roll call, Ms. Fritz.
Board Member Mendoza.
Excellent.
Present.
And,
Board Member Gonzalez.
that
Yes.
he will be a bit late to the meeting. However, we are now. Ms. Fritz, can you mute Mr. Neal?
Got it. We finished. Let me finish calling the roll. I believe I was. Oh, let's start from the beginning. Board Member Mendoza.
Present.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Present.
Board Member Ballin.
Present.
Vice Chair Pacheco, he is currently absent, and Chair Fajardo.
I am present. We were actually on the motion to approve the agenda, so I will move to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Second by Ballin. Roll call for the approval of the agenda.
Board Member Mendoza.
Yes.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Yes.
Board Member Ballin.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pacheco, he is currently absent, and Chair Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. Are there any public statements for the successor agency? Ms. Fritz?
Mr. Mayor, there are no public statements for successor agency.
Thank you. Therefore, I will move to approve the consent calendar for the successor agency. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ballin. Roll call, Ms. Fritz?
Board Member Mendoza.
Yes.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Yes.
Board Member Ballin.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pacheco is absent, and Chair Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. At this time, is there any agency discussion? I see none. Mr. Kimball, staff communication, you're nodding your head no, or shaking your head no, I should say. Therefore, I will move to adjourn the successor agency meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Fritz?
Board Member Mendoza.
Yes.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Yes.
Board Member Ballin.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pacheco. He is absent. Chair Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. And our successor agency meeting has been adjourned at 6:41 p.m. I will hereby call our regular San Fernando City Council meeting to order at said time. Once again, beginning with the roll call, Ms. Fritz.
Yes, Councilmember Mendoza,
Present.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Present.
Councilmember Valen,
Present.
Vice Mayor Pacheco, still absent, and Mayor Fajardo.
I am here. We have a quorum. If all will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will move to approve the agenda unless there are any items that the council has to add or delete. Seeing none, my motion is on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ballin. Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Valen,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco, still absent, and Mayor Fajardo.
And I am a yes. That motion does carry. We are now at presentations. We have two today. Now, the first one is our certificate of recognition for students of the month, which is being led by Education Commission Vice Chair David Govea.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, staff, for having us today. So nice to see everyone. I know it's been a while, but we're honored to be here. We're honored to acknowledge some amazing work that students are doing. The topic for this month is giving back, being that it's Thanksgiving. And we're excited to honor a couple students who have some really incredible stories. As you guys know, during this pandemic, it kind of threw education off completely. We're all learning and living in different ways. But the next couple students have made that transition a little bit easier. So the first person I want to introduce is the ACE site administrator, Jenny Rosenbaum. She nominated a senior, Isabella Barrera, who's doing some exceptional work. And so I'll give Jenny the mic so she can explain some of the great stuff that Isabella's done.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for having us. So I had the pleasure of nominating Isabella. I've been so impressed with her since the pandemic started. So while a lot of people were struggling, especially students struggling to figure out just how to live their lives and how to make things work, Isabella took it upon herself to help out her neighbors. So Isabella has started her own nonprofit. She collects sort of essential items for people in need, be it folks experiencing homelessness or other people. So she's been collecting wipes, she's been collecting hand sanitizer, and she's been collecting all other things. Just this weekend, she did an event for kids and families in the park that involved pumpkin decorating for them. And I know even for me personally, today I dropped off, I don't even know how many bags of clothes. She's accepting donations and stuff just to give out blankets, give out whatever she can to the people around her. And it's just really an exceptional thing to see. She has such a giving spirit. And she's at a school where being an upstander is considered a big deal and really celebrated, but she's really standing out in the last 8 months as a person who's going above and beyond to make sure that all of our neighbors are taken care of and have what they need, especially going into the holidays.
Thank you. Would you like to, would Isabella like to say a few words? Or the other students as well, Eric Murguia? Mr. Govea, you're on mute.
Great. I'll introduce Eric in a second. We do have a certificate here for Isabella. We'll be sending that out to you shortly, as well as a gift certificate from Horchateria. So we do want to honor the great work that you're doing. You make San Fernando proud. Thank you so much. Do you want to say a quick word, Isabella, or are you okay?
I actually had a little speech, if that's okay to present right now.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. To start off, I am honored to be here. My nonprofit organization just started off as an idea, And the idea wouldn't go away after a while, so processing what to do and how to do it, thanks to YouTube and social media, I created accounts across many platforms, and with the help of my peers and family members, the account started to grow. I couldn't do it alone, so involving two of my closest peers to participate and take an initiative to become a leader for the community, they took upon the opportunity. During these times of hardship and confusion of what the next steps are in the world, we have to look out for one another in our community. Recapping, in the beginning of the pandemic, stores sold out of the simple necessities families needed, and it became chaos. There is a high supply and demand for masks, gloves, hand sanitizers, Clorox wipes, and alcohol sprays. We can all agree it was ridiculous how much they were charging for all of these products. And living among minorities, it is definitely hard to purchase these products, but the financial barriers the community faces. Now that things have settled down from the beginning of the pandemic, the products became somewhat more reasonable. But that still isn't enough. I've created a nonprofit organization to focus on the less fortunate and their needs during these times, and to help make the resources more accessible. In the San Fernando Valley alone, it's been recorded that 7,773 homeless people live within our community in 2019. My motive for creating this nonprofit organization actually started when I was little. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and I was continuously witnessing homelessness. I wanted to do something to take action, but didn't know how to. But as a millennial, social media has been in my favor. So starting with Instagram, I started there. And with the help of my peers from SJHA and others around me, they helped me increase the numbers of people who support me. My first month activity was creating care packages, which supplied the basic necessities that we used on a day-to-day basis, and handing them out to homelessness to protect them. Our upcoming events are just effective, especially during this time that climate changes. I am proud to be helping out our community and eventually seeing this change, even if it is a small one. Everything counts. Thank you once again for having me, City Council members.
Thank you. That was beautifully said. And Mr. Govea, did you want to speak a little bit about, or see if Eric had something to say, or if anything else you wanted to add to Ms. Barrera's presentation, or the following one?
Great. Yeah, I would like to introduce Eric as well as his principal, Catherine Bates. So Eric is a fifth grader at Vista Dual Language Academy. I'm just very impressed with his story. Teaching virtually is very hard. A lot of students have struggled adapting to the kind of virtual or hybrid models, but Eric has really stepped in and supported his students. So he was nominated by Principal Catherine Bates, who's here. Principal Bates, would you care to say a few words and introduce Eric?
Hi, yes, thank you. I'm Kathy Bates, the principal at Vista del Valle. We're a dual language academy for students in preschool through fifth grade. And Eric is a fifth grader, and he truly embodies a student who gives back to his school community. His teacher is here, Ms. Gonzalez. I'd like to invite her just to give you a quick example of something that Eric does in his classroom and how he gives back to his classmates.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today, City Council members. I just wanted to say a couple words about Eric. I am his fifth grade teacher, Ms. Gonzalez, and I would just like to say how amazing and how proud I am about Eric Murguia, because he is able to help everybody in his classmates, not only his classmates, but myself as well. We all understand how it's virtual learning, very difficult transition, but he has made it possible for everybody in the classroom to feel a little bit more confident in accessing whether it be Google Slides, Google Documents, anything, downloading applications, downloading assignments. He's been able to actually help us all in that transition and make it a little bit easier, as well as I'm very proud of him taking the responsibility for himself to help others during asynchronous time and asking them, do you guys need help with anything? I could help you with a different strategy, because I found out a different strategy on how to open this application. So he has been able to explain to his classmates a different way, a different strategy, and a different opportunity to gain that access for all of our classwork and assignments. And I'm very, very proud of him, because I know as a fifth grader and going into virtual learning, this is a very difficult time, and I'm so very proud of him. And thank you for this opportunity for myself and fifth grade teacher, as well as him as a fifth grader. Thank you. Thank you.
Eric, would you like to say a couple words?
No, not really. Well, I'm just thankful for being here.
Awesome. Well, we're very proud of the work that you're doing, and we're honored to have you as a student. So thank you. Keep it up. And we're excited to see you continue to grow and be the leader that you are. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Awesome.
Yes. We're all proud of the students. Great, wonderful work. Thank you,
Great.
David. Good job.
Thank you so much, Council. We appreciate having you, or you having us. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's an
And
honor
the
to have you here
teachers, thank
today.
you.
And at this point, all members who came for this Education Commission Certificate of Recognition, they can still view on YouTube Live, I believe. But at this point, we will just return to the City Council as part of the Zoom. So I think we have a few people still here who are exiting. Excellent. And we will now go to our second presentation, which is an informational presentation regarding the November 3rd general elections. Ms. Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I have just a brief one-page slide that I would like to share with you. And why this is not happening at this moment. There we go. Can anyone see this?
No, we can't see it right now.
Okay,
I cannot.
I have many windows open. One moment, I apologize.
We always have a problem with our screen sharing.
I do. I can't actually find. It's not available.
Hey, Julia, if you just want to
Yeah.
go slide verbally, it just
Yeah, I just don't understand why it doesn't work. Okay. I'm almost locked up here. There we
I think a
go.
verbal presentation would be sufficient, though.
Okay. Let me just share with you some of the dates. So currently we are in the period of, let's see, November 5th through November 30th, where the county, Los Angeles County, is performing their canvassing of the ballots. So far, we have, I'm sorry, I wish I could get my slide up because I have my exact numbers, but so far the city of San Fernando is about 71% of voters have participated this voting season, this election. So it's a very high turnout at this point. LA County is still receiving ballots in the mail, and that will be through November 20th. The ballots must be postmarked on November 3rd or before. And as far as the remaining ballots left for the city of San Fernando, I touched base with the elections division this morning, and it is really, he stated at this point, it is impossible to provide that number. Possibly next week he might be able to, but at this point it's impossible to provide. I believe at this point, the next Canvas update will be November 17th, that's tomorrow. The one following will be on Friday, November 20th, and Tuesday, November 24th, and Friday, November 27th will be the last canvas update schedule, the last counting of the ballots. If required, they will also update on November 30th, but most likely on November 30th, the county will send all the cities a certified elections notification. And I'm available for any questions. I apologize for the slide.
It's okay. I think that that was excellent. Are there any questions from the council?
Well, what can we do to speed the process up? This has been a really frustrating process, very slow. And it would be good if we had a calendar of when they plan on opening up the ballots in advance. If they said, okay, we're only going to do it every other day or 2 times a week. And that's the other thing I want to know, Julia. Why don't they do it daily? I don't understand. Aren't they processing them daily?
Yes, Councilmember Ballin, they are processing ballots daily. However, the updates, well, last week they updated on the 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then they moved to the 10th, 13th. The ballots are being counted every day. They are going through thousands and thousands of ballots. The county has about an 82% turnout on their voters. So, you know, that being said, outside of manually opening, they also have to perform cure some of the ballots, meaning the cure is if ballots are received, they're damaged, or there isn't a signature, they still have to reach out to the voter and have them cure their ballots. So every ballot must be accounted for. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you that there's a speedier way of handling it. But at this point, that's what's happening.
Just really quickly, Ms. Fritz, the Vice Mayor is trying to enter the meeting. If you can allow him in.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, Councilmember Ballin, if you would like to continue.
Yes. So you have no idea how many outstanding San Fernando ballots we have out there?
I do not. I do not. And the county, I mentioned earlier, I did touch base with the county this morning, and they are not able to provide that number.
Okay, so I think when we spoke at one point, you said we had a little bit over 12,000 registered voters.
We have 12,119 registered voters.
And that we, at 71% of the registered voters have voted. Is that what you just said? Okay.
Yes.
And what percentage of those voters have those ballots been counted? Do you know the percentage?
That I do not know. I know that they've received the 8 ballots cast, 8,900. I don't want to pull up my PowerPoint for fear that I might lose everyone. But the figure is about that 8,900, whatever 71% backs into. I mean, it's really hard to say what percentage of voters have voted or not voted at this point. It just is not a figure that is obtainable.
Okay.
Right now, I actually have an earlier draft of the city clerk's presentation up for my, so there's, as of November 13th, so that was last Friday, 72% of San Fernando voters votes were counted. And you know, just on a timing perspective, you know, I think a lot of this is a function of, you know, sort of how over the last few years, elections have really evolved to be more inclusive and give us more options. Give us a much longer, you know, time to vote. But the consequence of having, you know, 30 days to vote instead of just 1 day is that it takes much longer to count all those ballots, and especially because the county has to anyone that mailed their ballot, postmarked their ballot by November 3rd, if that's received by November 20th, it has to be counted. So there could be, right now there could be a few, there could still be some ballots in transit that were postmarked by November 3rd, and the county, they're not going to know where they are in the mail, and they're not going to know how many there are. But if they receive them by the 20th of November, they have to be counted. So, I think a little bit of this is just how much elections have changed over the last few years with and again, the consequence of more voter participation and more voter, a wider number of options for voting is that it takes longer to kind of tally all those results. I'm sure they will continue to refine processes, and we'll continue to give feedback on how they can make that better. So hopefully in 2 years, the lead time will be a lot less.
Okay, I have one last comment. Again, I think that Julia and Cynthia have done an outstanding job considering this is a new process. And you should be proud of yourself. And next year, next time we vote, you guys are going to be professionals.
Thank you, Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you.
Any
other
other questions or comments? Seeing none, we will move to thank you, Ms. Fritz, for that presentation.
You're
We
welcome.
will move to the next part of the agenda. Decorum and order are printed in the agenda. However, we will now proceed to public statements. And Ms. Fritz, if you would like to read the public statements, I saw that we have several today.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. And if you just give me one moment to put a timer on, because the first statement is quite lengthy. And I will begin. This is from Nanette B. San Fernando Mayor and City Council members. My name is Nanette. I am a resident of the city of San Fernando. My family owns 2 homes in San Fernando. The most recent home was purchased this past June. We have chosen to live and raise our families in this beautiful city with such rich history. However, with the current COVID-19 outbreak this year in the city of San Fernando, COVID outbreak this year, we have become more and more concerned about living in the city of San Fernando. The residents living around us show a lack of concern for the spread of COVID-19 by the number of parties that are constantly being hosted at their homes. My neighbor across the street has at least 4 to 5 parties a month on the weekends, with jumpers for the kids and sometimes a mariachi. There are 4 other houses on our block that also have big parties. We view people parking up and down the street and walking by our home with no masks on as they walk to and from the parties. We have called the San Fernando Police Department on a number of occasions to report the large gatherings. Sometimes they say they will send a unit, other times they say they have other emergencies to attend to. Either way, the parties can continue to go on late into the night and sometimes into the early morning hours of 2 a.m. We have received a San Fernando newsletter in the mail with information about COVID-19 and the number of cases in our city. However, by the time the letter is received in the mail, we are well past the number of cases that are being reported. As of 8 p.m. on November 14th, we have 1,317 coronavirus cases and 20 deaths. It's almost been 2 weeks since everyone in our community celebrated Halloween. I have noticed in the past week, the number of cases have been in the double digits for the coronavirus cases in the city. In the past 2 weeks alone, we have increased to 149 new coronavirus cases. This public comment has listed dates throughout and numbers of increase variances from October 31st to November 14th, but I won't read all of that. With Thanksgiving, Christmas, Dia de los Reyes, and other celebrations around the corner, my questions to the mayor and city council members are, how can we curb the fast spread of the virus in the city of San Fernando if families continue to host large celebrations? How can we inform the city of San Fernando residents of the fast increase in cases so that we are able to make better informed decisions as they embark upon upcoming celebrations? If our residents are not informed daily or weekly of the number of coronavirus cases in the city of San Fernando, then there will be no change in their daily practices. That is 3 minutes. All right, I will move on to the next public statement. This next one is from Rosa Gutierrez. Good afternoon. My name is Rosa Gutierrez, and I am a San Fernando Valley native and a current USC grade student. I would like to discuss the importance of the Immigrant Mental Health Act of 2020 in today's City Council meeting. For years, the immigrant community has suffered at the hands of our immigration systems and policies as a country. These systems and detention centers have caused trauma through aggressive tactics such as overcrowding, separation of families, and medical abuse. With this act, we have the opportunity to dismantle these maltreatment practices. The Immigrants Mental Health Act of 2020 proposes humane care, and demands appropriate training for its CBP agents, which include proficiency in mental health issues, bilingual agents, and culturally appropriate interventions for trauma. Each facility is mandated to have one mental health professional, and each evaluation must remain confidential and cannot be used against any individual awaiting an immigration hearing. The act aims to eliminate causing a traumatic experience. This type of accountability can shift the narrative that immigrants are less than legal citizens, but rather that immigrants should be treated with dignity and respect. Join me in urging our Senator Robert M. Hertzberg to show support of this act so it may become a bill of law. Thank you. Next public statement. Eduardo Solorzano. He is the Community of Schools Administrator for the Los Angeles Unified School District. Los Angeles Unified remains committed to reopening our schools as soon as it is safe to do so, based on the CDC guidelines and the recommendations of Los Angeles County public health officials. In preparation to return to campus, we invite students and their families to make an appointment for a COVID test for any student and their family members. The test is painless and quick. Results are emailed in about 24 hours. The local COVID testing site is at San Fernando Middle School campus. And please visit the district's COVID test appointment page at achieve.lausd.net/COVID testing APPT, short for appointment. Intervention programs. The district has launched academic intervention programs to support our students most at need. For more information about these programs, parents should contact their local school. There's also on-site one-on-one tutoring available with a limited number of students. And remote small group intervention support is also available after school or on Saturdays. The next public statement we have is David Bernal. Good evening, City Council, staff, and residents. David Bernal, 702 4th Street. My statement is in regards to the consideration of the review and approval of murals on private property. I have wanted to see murals in the city for years now. In fact, Councilmember Gonzalez and I met with a few artists and other supportive members of the community a few years ago and tried to start this, and without support from the council at that time. It gained no traction and died. San Fernando is home to many talented artists who could lend their talents to this project and turn ugly, tagged on walls into beautiful pieces of art. This will attract people from surrounding communities to our town, possibly spending money at our businesses and restaurants. Hopefully, this makes it through without too many restrictions as that hampers on artists' freedom of expression. Thank you for bringing this up again. Now get it done. The next public statement I have is from Adriana Gomez. Dear City Council, I was very disappointed to learn that staff is recommending an extension of an additional 10 years to the MOU for the swap meet property, allowing it to operate as a swap meet until June 2033. The blight on Glen Oaks Boulevard has become worse over the years, and the property owner has had significant time to redevelop the site. I urge City Council to not extend the MOU and to work with the existing property owner and community to develop this site. Thank you. Next speaker, Nicholas Cardenas. This is in regards to item 9, extension of the MOU. Dear members and City Council, the San Fernando City Chamber of Commerce wishes to express its opposition to yet another extension of a memorandum of understanding with the owners of the San Fernando Swap Meet. Given the long history of little to no action by both the city and the property owners to publicly articulate what has been done to date, one, to identify another location for the swap meet, and two, whether there has been a serious revitalization analysis by the property owner and city of the current site at 584 Glen Boulevard. Since 2007, or the Fourth Amendment to the MOU agreement with the city, the property owner was required to submit updates to the city noting its effort to seek out potential retail tenants and other uses, as well as alternate sites to relocate the San Fernando swap meet. The community deserves to know if that has been done. If so, are those reports and updates available for review by the city council or members of the public? We think they should. If they exist, in absence of such information, this current proposal for an extension amounts to nothing more than just the city and property owners doing what is easy and within their respective economic interests, not rolling up their sleeves and doing what is right for the swap meet vendors and the residents of the city. The staff report says, in exchange for another extension of 10 years to the swap meet use, the property owners will continue to pursue redevelopment of the property into a higher and better use. I think now the property owners will work diligently on this when they have done very little for almost 2 decades to redevelop the site, especially if the city council votes to lock in another decade of the swap meet use. Lastly, given our current public health crisis and the foreseeable future of having to live with COVID-19, we find it unfortunate the city prefers to protect their tax revenues, and San Fernando Gateway LLC prefers to put ahead their ROI than the greater San Fernando community's public health and safety. By their very nature, swap meet attracts large gatherings of people and can become potentially super spreaders. That is 3 minutes. Next, we have Christina Bernal. Hello, my name is Christina Bernal, 702 4th Street. I manage a business in the mall, and I'm speaking on behalf of that business and as a concerned resident. I'm concerned with this item and the potential use of the property as a swap meet for an additional 10 years. San Fernando deserves a planned development for this property. Residents have spoken on several forums in the past years on how we want entertainment or more dining choices. I understand the concern for people who work and depend on the swap meet, but at what point does the city start to feel that same concern for its small businesses in town who have been hit hard by a pandemic and overhead that is still occurring? The swap meet can exist on a school ground or a parking lot on the weekends like in every other city. Melrose Trading Post is at a high school and Silver Lake Flea is at a parking lot. Glen Boulevard has become a sea of vendors up and down both sides of the street. That is the image entering our city. My concern is that we keep allowing the swap meet to continue on the site and have no plan for development in the future. Thank you. Our next speaker is Celeste Rodriguez. Dear members of the City Council, I am writing in support of item 12, the adoption of an ordinance approving art murals on private property. The City of San Fernando has wonderful, undeniable character that will be enhanced by the ability to showcase art and artists throughout our community. City businesses have been vocal in their desire to have the ability to repurpose walls, to add color and vibrancy, to encourage foot traffic and distinguish spaces for the entire region to enjoy. Thank you to Councilmember Gonzalez for listening to the community and working hard over the years to make this possible. Thank you to Councilmember Bowen for helping to get this over the finish line. This is another step forward for the city to celebrate the arts. I hope the council approves this item unanimously. And that is the end of public statements. Mr. Mayor?
Great. I think the mayor may be off for a moment or two, checking in. Mr. Kimball, what do we have next?
We have the consent calendar next. Vice Mayor Pacheco.
And Vice Mayor, staff requests that we pull item 7 from the consent calendar just to add a few extra comments.
Okay, are there any other items to pull? No, okay. Let's go ahead with item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So this item was discussed at the last council meeting. Councilmember Mendoza had brought it forward. Per council direction, staff drafted a resolution expressing the city's support for California Citizens for Local Control and other actions to strengthen local authority and control, particularly as it's related to zoning and housing issues. Much of this revolves around the recent regional housing needs assessment and RENA numbers that all cities in Southern California have been allocated through the state and through SCAG. I just wanted to bring to City Council's attention a recent effort by a number of Southern California cities to urge SCAG or to take a position to urge SCAG to talk about potential litigation. And I wanted to offer that San Fernando also prepares a similar letter. Maybe Tim's here. Maybe he can provide a little bit of additional color on that effort and what they're asking cities to support.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. The city was contacted by some of our sister cities in the SCAG region about joining an effort to submit correspondence to SCAG, SCAG's leadership on the regional council to request that they convene a special closed meeting of the regional council to discuss the recommendations that came out of a SCAG RENA litigation committee that was formulated last fall as the SCAG region was sort of determining how to move forward with the allocation that had been issued by the state through the State Housing and Community Development Department. At this point, staff plans to move forward with submitting a letter of support for this request on behalf of the City of San Fernando. And the objective here would be to have the regional council look again at what was discussed in terms of actions that SCAG could take directed at the state, at the state of California and the Housing and Community Development Department that issues these regional allocations, up to and including litigation by SCAG against the state. So certainly something that a number of SCAG cities and counties are very interested in, just based on ultimately how it all shook out with the final allocation and final methodology from SCAG. Just another update, the staff report mentioned just some additional steps that staff has been taking over the last couple weeks. That includes going through the RENA appeals process with SCAG, and City of San Fernando was one of several dozen local jurisdictions that did submit an appeal. The only update I have to share is that per SCAG, those appeals will have hearings being conducted for each of them, and those are scheduled to take place sometime in December and January, but may be extended until the first or second week of February.
Okay.
Thanks. And just staff doesn't necessarily need any additional direction. We just wanted to provide that update with regards to the letter of support that we will also be submitting.
Okay. I'll briefly comment, and I'll open it up to council as well. In my role as the San Fernando representative to SCAG, I can echo what Tim has mentioned about the fact that several members of SCAG are very disgruntled and upset. And so we want the San Fernando residents to know that, we are trying to do our best to try to fix the situation with the RENA numbers being so high. And it's just not something that we find is tenable. And so, that's why we have staff, exploring these options. So, Ms. Mendoza, if you would like to lead us off, please.
I think it's important for us to submit a response. Is there a timing issue on this right now, Mr. Kimball? As to how soon something needs to be done?
No, we can, we have a sample letter that was provided to us. And so we'll be submitting it based on that. So we can turn it around really quickly and get it to them this week.
Okay, thank you. I think it's important. We can't lose control of our city and have out, being told where we're going to put our housing or how no CEQA or studies to be done. So we can't lose those abilities. So I think this is important for us to pass. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if my other colleagues have had an opportunity to chime in yet. Vice Mayor, did council members Ballin and Gonzalez have an opportunity yet?
Not yet. We're awaiting their comments.
Thank you. I will begin with Councilmember Gonzalez and then go to Councilmember Ballin.
Thank you. I just agree that we need to send out, send out this letter and join other cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ballin. You're on mute, Councilmember.
Nick, can we find out, or Tim, specifically who voted for this, who made the decision? I want to know where they live. I want to know what their communities look like. And are they even aware of what they have proposed for the city of San Fernando? So if I can get names, I would be very grateful, and an email address. I'd like to communicate with them directly.
Just a point of clarification, the issue at hand is really the allocation that was issued by the state agency, and that's a state agency that falls, really under the purview of Governor Newsom. So there aren't necessarily, say, elected officials that run that state department. So it's whatever the governor's a home address would be, I think might be the most appropriate one.
Okay, and I know exactly what it is. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, did you speak yet on this?
Yeah, I'll add again just briefly. I'll dovetail with Ms. Bellin. I think that just indicates how important localities and local government are to the decision making of housing. In a lot of ways, we feel left out of these numbers and this methodology, and the results asking us to build, several hundred, or I think it's over 1,700 new units in 8, 9, 10 years is asking too much. Now, we are in a housing crisis, but San Fernando has shown great leadership in building low-income housing, moderate-income housing, and it really is up to our neighbors to begin to shoulder some of the burden that we're feeling. Ultimately, I myself do not and will not ever support high density housing in San Fernando. I think measured and responsible development is our best way forward. And because the RHNA numbers are so high, I also cannot support them. So thank you, Ms. Mendoza, for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you. I concur with the comments of my colleagues. I think that these numbers are outrageous. They are unrealistic. They are discriminatory in the sense that they place a significantly higher burden on us than they do on more affluent communities. And for all those reasons, we should continue to fight this at every level possible. I know that Councilmember Mendoza agendized an item, gosh, it might have been a year or maybe 6 months ago to a year ago regarding density as well. I'm not sure if that letter ever went out, but I think that some of the regulations that the state has put in place have made our parking situation and living situations much more challenging. The fact that properties can now have 3 units as opposed to 2 units is an undue burden on the city because it doesn't take into account any of the parking necessities. And even as we've spoken about in previous meetings, I know that Councilmember Gonzalez had shared this opinion with me before that, building even a second unit on a property that has absolutely no conceivable way to park a car is very challenging for the community. And so hopefully the state will reconsider some of these policies, some of these issues. I think that there are reasonable ways that we can improve housing, but at the same time, I think that having unjustifiable mandates and laws in place that don't take into account the reality of each community are very detrimental overall. And so having said that, Councilmember Mendoza, did you want to make a motion to approve item number 7?
Yes, I make the motion to approve.
Is there a second to this? So I will second this. Can I have a roll call, Ms. Fritz?
Yes, Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ballin.
We haven't voted on the entire consent calendar yet.
Oh,
This is-
well, I wasn't here, but you can actually vote on an individual item and then
Okay.
return to the consent.
Okay, yes,
So this is for consent item 7.
This is
Correct.
7 that we are making the motion on.
Okay, and Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. Therefore, let the record reflect that item 7 was removed for discussion. It was discussed, voted upon, and approved. And having said that, are there any other items to remove from the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent calendar.
Excellent. And I will second that. Ms. Fritz, please. Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Unmute.
Councilmember Ballin,
yes,
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
and Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are now moving on to the administrative reports. We have item number 8, our recurring item regarding COVID-19 response effort and approval of proposed recommendations. I'm sure that many of us have heard of the news of the Pfizer vaccine as well as the Moderna vaccine, both of which show to be potentially very promising and to return us to a state of normalcy by sometime mid to late next year. I wanted to make sure that we have in place a plan of action so that A, San Fernando residents are informed of how to obtain the vaccine, and B, to ensure that we receive a proportionate and fair share of what our residents should have. And so, Mr. Kimball, if you would like to dive not only into that issue, but into some of the other issues that we have in here and some of the work that's been done with the county already on that matter.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So as part of this week's update, I did want to provide an update as the mayor has spoken about. The city's been working with the county on establishing Rec Park and Las Palmas Park as qualifying them as public medical point of dispensing locations. That's a structure an emergency preparedness structure that has been in place for a while to dispense vaccines or other medical measures for different emergencies. However, this emergency typically planned for anthrax was the original reasoning for the MPODs. However, it's been adapted for COVID. It's being adapted for COVID-19. So staff in January and February will be going through the requisite training. We've already started the process of qualifying those locations. There are specific logistical considerations for each of those locations. And we will be bringing back an MOU so that when the vaccine, any vaccine, or even flu shots, a lot of times you can just dispense regular flu shots through these. We'll have qualified locations in the city that the county can activate to provide to any local any local persons that would like to get that vaccine when it does become available. I do want to address a number of the issues that came up in one of the public comments earlier today, and I think that resident is right. We are starting to see a little bit of a regression in some of the progress that had been made earlier this summer, or in heading into the fall months. Our testing positivity rate deaths and hospitalizations had all been down to record lows, in the September and early October. However, since that point, we've seen sort of steady increases throughout LA County. As of today, or as of yesterday, actually, we're averaging just over, we have almost 1,050 hospitalizations. We were down in the 600s about a month ago. Our deaths continue to remain low and trend low, lower than especially from the beginning of the outbreak, which is a testament to sort of the treatments that are available, and it's not as deadly as it was at the very beginning of the outset, but people are still getting very ill, as attested to by the 1,000+ hospitalizations. And then currently the daily average positivity rate countywide has ticked up to 5%. I do want to, let everyone know that locally in San Fernando and Pacoima, in this particular area, over the last week or so, we actually have had a very significant increase in positivity rate, close to 20% positivity rate locally. Because of that, LAFD has reached out, and I was working with one of the battalion chiefs over the weekend on identifying different locations for a more permanent testing facility in San Fernando, or near, in or near San Fernando, and also not just a testing facility, but also where they would potentially dispense flu shots and if it's still around when the vaccine comes out, another option potentially for distributing vaccines. So we are working on a few locations, and hopefully by tomorrow we'll have a close location identified. It's really LAFD will really be the lead agency on that, as they have all the federal funding to put those on and purchase the equipment. But they've been really working closely with us to try and get that established. We actually did have a walk-up COVID testing site today at Rec Park and over the weekend, and I think we have another one planned for this coming weekend. We have been getting over 500 people a day that have been tested through those walk-up sites, and the idea is maybe those walk-up sites become more permanent, so that they're available every day instead of just a few days a month. And LAFD has said they have, when they've set up those testing sites, seen pretty significant decreases in the areas where they set those up, because the testing is so much easier to access for those persons, and it's a lot easier to get out information in the areas through those COVID sites. So hopefully we'll be able to make an announcement soon about some more permanent semi-permanent testing sites in San Fernando. I do want to, today the governor did announce, due to the increase statewide, and I think we've seen, the European countries have seen increases, and we started to see increases just, throughout the US. But in California, we've seen a number of increases, and as a result, he actually required all counties that had been previously made it out of the purple and into the red are now being put back in purple and need to implement the appropriate strategies or the regulations within the next 24 hours. That includes, some places you could allow indoor dining, you could go to movie theaters. That obviously County of LA has been in the purple tier the entire time, so that this directive won't necessarily impact us. However, it does signal that there could potentially be additional restrictions if we don't, start to see a flattening and even reduction in cases in the relatively near future. The staff report does indicate a number of other, we do still have the city facility closures. I do just want to make sure that everyone that is any residents, please go on our website and apply for the residential food program, where we'll distribute a box of non-perishable food and some PPE. Same thing for small businesses. Please register for that PPE program. And then lastly, again, as was mentioned in the public comment earlier tonight, we do have a number of upcoming holiday celebrations, and the county has has issued guidance, and obviously the city reiterates this guidance that you know, a number of things that you can do is really, again, stressing that you do not, that everyone keeps the 6 feet physical distancing. Photos, whenever there are photos, you know, you need to be 6 feet apart. You still masks are still a requirement whenever you're in public. Some potential, you know, they really want to keep any gatherings you may have with your family to very small, just only people in your household. And they've kind of started to implement this idea of sort of bubbles where you have maybe 2 or 3 households, but that you stay with those 2 or 3 households to increase your social interaction, but you're still limiting it to 2 or 3 households. So those are some of the things that they've kind of recommended in, you know, understanding the need to celebrate holidays with friends and family, but also the need to really make sure that we realize that we're not out of the woods, and there's quite a bit of you know, we're already seeing an uptick, and if we don't do something, we'll continue to see the virus spread. And just for the community's benefit, we do have the guidance from the county. It's up on our website as far as holiday activities, and we also have it attached to the we have it included as attachment on the staff report tonight. So with that, staff's available for any questions from council.
Thank you. Councilmember Ballin.
Nick, do you know what the turnaround time is for testing?
So it depends on where you go to get testing. A lot of people through their primary care physician, if their physician orders the testing, I've seen 24 hours or so turnaround time. If you do go to some of the larger kind of mass testing sites, sometimes they can take a few days depending on how busy they are. It had gotten relatively quick only because I think fewer people were getting tested in the September-October period. But you know, now that there's an uptick in number of people that are getting tested, you know, the labs start to get backed up again. So you can expect it to be, you know, 3 to 4 days, you know, in most cases before you get results. So during that time, if you're getting tested because you think you have a reason to be tested, you should really be self-quarantining until you get those results.
And my next question is, how are we handling that situation from the public comment as far as parties? And there's a football going on right now, and there seems to be a lot more activity in various neighborhoods with football gatherings, viewing parties. How does the city handle that?
Yeah, so you know, and I see the chief unmuted himself, so I know you know, a lot of it was related to police calls. So I'll have him chime in on that particular comment.
Good evening, Mayor and council members.
Who's that? Who invited George Clooney?
Sorry, this is the the November look for this month. Don't mean to scare anybody. But we're doing our best handling these type of situations. We're trying to educate as we go out to these type of calls. Probably about 99% of the time, the residents are very cooperative with us. They shut down after we request them to shut down. You know, we use enforcement as citation as a last resort. But there's a couple of times when we go to party calls and they're at the border of our city limits, and some of the calls are actually in the city of Los Angeles. Then we pass on the information to the City of Los Angeles Police Department, and they handle it as accordingly. But we do as best we can. Education is our primary thing to do first with the community. And if that doesn't work, then we'll give them a warning issuance in accordance with our city ordinance. And then if we go back a second time, then it becomes a citation. So that's where how our progression goes on dealing with these type of situations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions, council member?
Yes.
Thank you. Therefore, I will go to Councilmember Mendoza, followed by Gonzalez.
Okay. I think that what we need to do is send out those reminder calls, those alerts before the holidays, and maybe a couple of them to emphasize the importance of the social distancing and the mask and how many, the new guidelines by the governor. I think, we need those constant reminders. We kind of let our guard down and don't follow the rules as we should because we think, oh, well, we're okay. But when reality, we're not. We're not doing too good here in the city of San Fernando and our surrounding communities. So, like I said, with regarding the businesses, reminding the businesses, the social distancing, do they need the markers? Do they need additional information or PPE? What do they need so that we can help keep them safe as well, and those that are coming into our city or those that are shopping. Also, I guess, I'm referring to Nanette B's comment, and she said, mariachis. How do you handle those things, Chief? I know you just spoke on it, but when you hear music, are they, do you only go when you're called, or do you go, if they're driving around, they happen to see a party? How do you address those things?
Usually we handle those as when we receive calls for service, especially when we're a busy night. We that's how we handle it, for calls for service. But if we do see a large party, especially during these times, we will address it first off. As far as mariachi or any other type of live bands are not legal to have in our city and backyards, especially during these difficult times. So once again, we try to educate first as best as we can. And like I said, 99% of the time, they're very cooperative. They understand, they shut it down. And then, but there's always that 1%, then we have to deal with it. We give them, like I said, according to our ordinance, we give them a warning notice. And then if you come back the next time, then it becomes a citation.
How many citations have you given out?
During this time, actually 0. We try. It's been very good. People have been cooperative. And as far as the final citation, that's been 0.
I'm glad to hear they're cooperating. That's less of a headache for.
Makes it a lot easier to deal with. And like I said, generally everybody's pretty cooperative. There's a few people that need a little more convincing, but it hasn't resulted to the final stage of issuing a citation for a fine.
So it's important for the residents or anyone with concerns to call the police department and let you know what they hear or see or whatever, or they're concerned.
Absolutely. And try to give us the best locations possible, because there's sometimes they'll give us a general area, then it makes it a little bit difficult to hunt it down. But generally we get pretty good information, and then we will handle the situation as best we can. What
number do you want them to call at? Is this
that'll be the primary line. That'll be the 818-898-1267. And then once the attendant comes on, hit 0 and it goes right to our dispatch center.
Thank you.
And of course, if it's a life and death situation, then 911.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. Yeah, education. I agree with Councilmember Mendoza about possibly looking out at doing some of the robocalls or flyers, social media posts, reminding everybody about the uptick in COVID, especially with the holiday season coming up. And I know that it doesn't affect so far LA County because we are in the purple, but one of the things that I think has been thriving in our community in certain areas is the outdoor dining. But now coming with the winter season, it's going to get a little harder for the outdoor dining. Is there anything that we have discussed or reached out to the small business community, or even discussions within our organization on how we can help to continue the outdoor dining, or any other regulations that we can help out during these times with the weather coming?
We have not. I mean, so we can definitely engage. We have a few meetings, upcoming meetings with the Mall Association, and I know there are a few restaurants there, and we can send out another survey. We actually just sent out a survey to businesses regarding PPE and what kind of PPE would be most useful to them. So we can look at sending out another email survey just in general to businesses on things that we can support through their outdoor operations and what would be the most useful to them. So we can solicit that feedback.
Yeah, I think that's key coming up, and especially uh, what is it? The Thanksgiving break is historically the biggest bar weekend in out of the whole year, where you have families coming home, people go out to the bar. So I know that during this time, obviously it's not recommended, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be uptick of people trying to get out on that weekend to go to a bar or go eat or whatever it may be. So if we start planning for that now and reaching out to our small business community, I think it'll be extremely helpful for them, and at least let them know that we are listening and we do care. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, so important to keep those things in mind. I'm very much concerned for our small business community. Obviously, in addition to the public health crisis that our residents are facing, chances are this winter is going to be a bad one. We may be facing more closures of restaurants and bars when it seemed like we were just opening them up, a few weeks ago. I remember walking by the brewery when the Dodgers were in the playoffs. Definitely had conflicted feelings. It was great to see that the place was packed. Business was going great. It was great to see the Dodgers winning, of course. But there is just a lot of people congregating. Even if we wanted to continue that, it seems like the surges are real. And a piece of data that I was looking at today showed the uptick in Canada about a week or two after Canada's Thanksgiving celebration, which I think they celebrate earlier in the year, I suppose. And sure enough, as Mr. Gonzalez alluded to, there is definitely a spike given all the family gatherings. People get comfortable. It's understandable. We're home with our friends and our family, people we haven't seen in months or even longer in person. And unfortunately, our loved ones, especially those that are up there in age, who we miss the most and who probably miss us so dearly, are often the most at risk. And so I would encourage our residents to continue to practice social distancing and really reach out to your city hall here. And this goes for the businesses as well. We're here to make it easier to do business in San Fernando. We're here to be an example to others, and the only way that works is through an open dialogue. And so I think we showed pretty good leadership working with the business community whether it was opening up the breweries or going after things that we can change at the swap meet, for instance, in terms of making it a safer place for people to visit and do business. I want to be hopeful, but I think people should prepare for a very long and troubling winter. I think San Fernando, with our disaster council, with our city council members that are taking this very seriously, we want to make sure and prepare so that everybody who wants a vaccination can get one. You can trust that we are very much in tune with what we need to do in terms of setting an example for our residents and our businesses and so forth. It would be great, Mr. Kimball, if we can have some of these walk-up testing sites be permanent. I think you're spot on when you mentioned that areas that have these testing sites actually do better, because when you have it, you can quarantine. And even if you don't feel sick and you have it, that you can transfer it to other people. The knowledge and the data knowledge really is power. Not knowing whether you have it or not is probably the riskiest thing. And so I think if we can add some permanence to those walk-up sites, that would be really good. I think continuing that dialogue with residents and businesses about PPE, about outdoor dining and so forth, it really is key. I encourage members of the community to reach out to me personally, to City Hall. Really take advantage of the help you have here. You're not on your own. We are in this together. And I say that also because, you know, Pacoima and Van Nuys and Sylmar really have even more troubling numbers, like very, very troubling numbers. I think Van Nuys and Pacoima are among the worst in terms of death rate in Los Angeles County. And so I don't mean to be an alarmist or to, you know, belittle the efforts that those cities are going through, but more so to, you know, put in context that these are our neighbors, this is our community, these people, you know, they're our neighbors, they come to our businesses too, and they drive in our streets and they take our buses and everything. And so we really are in this together. You know, I'm very hopeful that we will also begin to have a more mature and competent national leadership. I think the leadership change at the top will be welcome, and I really hope that the new presidential administration implements a reasonable and sensible COVID-19 response you know, program, and that we as elected officials are all waiting and eager to continue working together to address this public health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. That was so articulately said. I'm not sure that I have much more to add other than the wisdom espoused by my colleagues, although I simply wanted to reiterate that when a vaccine is available, the city has to be proactive as possible to ensure that our community has equal access to them. Just this week, the Trump administration, which will be out the door soon, made threats to New York about withholding the vaccine. And I think that having an unpredictability as to the dissemination and the disbursement of vaccine, since small doses could potentially be available in January, is something that would be quite tragic for our community. And simply wanted to emphasize, not only do we have to ensure the equitable distribution as best as we can, but also that the information is available to members of the public as to what sites they can go, or as to what locations they could visit, and if there are any other public-private partnerships in and outside of the city that might benefit them. Having said that, Mr. Kimball, oh, sorry, is someone speaking?
No, I think it was just a glitch in the matrix that happened to me too. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, every once in a while I hear someone speaking as I'm speaking. And so I was simply going to ask whether if you needed specific direction on this item, or if the general direction you have received today is sufficient, Mr. Kimball. You're on, you've remuted yourself.
The general direction was sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we are moving on then from item number 8 and proceeding to item number 9. And this is a consideration of an MOU with San Fernando Gateway LLC related to capital improvements and the operation of the San Fernando swap meet. Mr. Kimball, would you like to lead us on this?
Yes, I'll go through a brief staff presentation. And just so you know, we have Neil Hattrick and Heidi Lopez from Robertson Group representing San Fernando Gateway LLC that are available if council happens to have any questions for them during the deliberation. So in 2017, City Council approved a sixth and final extension period for the under the current MOU, which approved the Robertson Property Group operating the swap meet under certain conditions through June 1, 2023. Since that time, however, at that time, the city remained, the city made a pledge to remain in constant discussions with the property owner to discuss next steps and what the MOU might look like beyond 2023. So those for the last few years, those discussions have remained intact. In the property owner, and we were basically determining an appropriate path forward, considering the significant changes in the retail development market over the term of the MOU. The property owner has expressed a desire to extend their authority to use the site as a swap meet for an additional 10 years beyond the expiration of the existing term, which, as I mentioned, expires on June 1, 2023. In exchange for extending the use of the site, the city has required that the property owner make a significant investment in a capital improvement plan to improve the quality of the customer experience and introduce maintenance standards to ensure the condition of the swap meet remains comparable to other swap meets in the region. Just some highlights of the proposed MOU, which will replace the prior MOU, which had been in existence since the early 2000s. It will continue the general provisions from the prior MOU related to swap meet operations, including the maintaining the current days and hours of the swap meet, the maximum number of vendors and storage containers, the use of amplified sound, and the collection and remittance of the city's admissions tax. The MOU will also include provisions for increased financial controls, including requirements to provide internal control procedures and audit rights related to the collection of admissions taxes, increased on-site food vendor options, and permission to apply for an ABC license to sell beer and wine on site. The capital improvement program must be completed within 12 months of executing the MOU. That is subject to COVID-19 restrictions, as that may impede their ability to complete the construction. But in no case can those capital improvements be completed later than June 1, 2023. There's an exhibit to the agreement, which is also included in your packet, that shows the improvements to be made on the site. But in general, that there's an installation of, I believe, approximately 80 shade trees and shade sail structures throughout within the swap meet to sort of address some of the heat island effects created in that property, plus the payment of approximately $16,000 as a tree in lieu fee that the city will use to plant additional shade trees in the public right of way. There will be a performance area constructed in the middle of the property. Restrooms will be renovated. The entry and pedestrian pathways will be improved to make a more signature look entering and walking through the swap meet. The parking lot will be reconfigured to improve circulation. There will be dedicated bicycle parking stations. There will be a slurry seal and restripe of the paved areas. And there'll be integration of the Coima Wash bike path into the property when that project is completed. Property maintenance standards are introduced to ensure the site is maintained at or above the maintenance standards of other comparable swap meets in the area. And we will continue to, there still is the provision that, as any redevelopment opportunities do come up, that those will continue to be considered, and by or before July 1st, 2031, and each December in June thereafter, the owner must submit a written progress report specifying actions taken toward redevelopment. The proposed MOU will replace the existing MOU with a more practical agreement that considers the significantly changed retail development market and preserves one of the city's major tax resources. Providing the improvements agreed to in the proposed MOU are completed by June of 2023, the property owner will be authorized to continue operating the swap meet until June of 2033. And again, authorizing the swap meet to continue for an additional 10 years will preserve a substantial commercial marketplace that draws a number of attendees every year to San Fernando, and also provides an outlet for many local entrepreneurs to sell some of their goods. And also the MOU also represents a significant investment by the property owner in enhancing the quality of the swap meet. So that's staff's presentation on the proposed MOU. Again, if there are any questions specific for the Robertson Property Group folks, there are 2 representatives available for questions.
Thank you. First, I would like to see if they had any comments that they wanted to offer before I go to the council for questions. Are either of the 2 representatives from Robertson's Properties available to give any additional comment or feedback?
Sure, Mayor, thank you. I would just say that my name is Neil Haltrecht with Robertson Properties Group, and I would just say that this has, as you all know, been something we've been working on, well, for several years, but in particular, the improvement to the swap meet for well over a year. We've gone through an iterative process of giving you some concepts, getting feedback from 4 of the 5 council members on those concepts, and integrating as many of the feedback points you gave us as possible. And I think we got most of them in there. And in addition, getting additional feedback from Mr. Howe and Mr. Kimball that was also integrated. So this is a significant commercial center. It's outdoors. So during the time of COVID, it's been one of the safer places for community members to come. We've implemented all the regulations that you asked of us over the summer. And we think that, for the significant investment we're going to make, knowing that we have the opportunity to stay at the property for a long period of time, that we can significantly enhance the experience and continue to provide a great service, not only to the citizens of the city, but other people who come from out of the city to shop, as well as the hundreds of vendors who are small business people who depend on this swap meet for their livelihoods. So we are excited about the proposal, and we appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten through the process working with all of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will begin with council questions or comments. Councilmember Ballin.
Would you start with Councilmember Mendoza, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Mendoza. You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you for attending our meeting, Neil, and what is her name? Lopez, Heidi, thank you for coming. I know that we had some public comments today, and quite frankly, I've been on the council for about a year already and hadn't heard any opposition to the swap meet, and a lot of my people that I deal with, I deal with many residents, and they favor the swap meet. They, when we had the situation of COVID and you had to shut down, there was a great number of people wanting to be able to sell their goods at the swap meet, those that wanted to attend the swap meet and do their purchases in an outdoor setting. I hadn't heard any negative feedback on that. My family goes to the swap meet. I have many friends, and it's been something that's just been part of the city for me. That's what I've known. I've lived like a couple of blocks from the swap meet when I was younger, when it was an airport actually, and the airport and the racetrack. But I think it's very important that if this goes through, that you follow you follow the guides, that Robertson's follows the guidelines set by this agreement, and in a timely manner, because there appears to be some opposition for this project and or for the swap meet and wanting development. And I know that's been something that's been discussed as well, but I had not heard any opposition. So that's all I have to say for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ballin.
I gave this a lot of thought, and I agree with Councilmember Mendoza. During COVID, many community members contacted me, and they felt like, why can't the swap meet be open? The department stores are closed. It is outside. They do get good bargains. Many of them have lost their jobs and or are on a very limited income. And I know that when the vendors, when it finally did open up, there was a bit of a problem because they all wanted to go back. They all wanted life to be normal, and they could go ahead and, my alarm, they could go ahead and sell their goods, and that wasn't possible. So I know Robinson Group had to make some accommodations. I'm glad that Tim worked very hard and putting the MOU together. I trust Tim completely, and our attorney, so I know that they dotted the i's and crossed the t's. So I'm at the point considering what our residents want and what the vendors who sell at the swap meet, how important it is to them, especially at COVID time, and they have very few options. It's a project I'm going to support. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you. Nick, is it possible, or Tim, either one, is it possible to pull up the plans that have been submitted or we've been discussing in regards to the redesign?
Yeah, I have them available. Julia, can you please allow me to share my screen? Thank you. You should, can you see it now?
I can see it loading.
Okay, how about now?
There we go. Got it. Thank you so much. Just for individuals that haven't had the opportunity to see what the actual redesign is, this is the layout. I think working with the Robinson Group and the several meetings that we have had, they have actually been very nice and amenable to suggestions in regards to reworking this design. When it came to talking about us adding trees, when I told them to incorporate about the bike path, because I don't even think they were aware of the bike path at that time, the future bike path, the incorporating of possible art, especially when it comes to the supply bins or the cargo bins that are going to be put in, shade structures. All council, it's been a priority for the trees. Can you talk about the trees a little bit, Tim, on what the plan was for the trees?
Thank you. Yeah, obviously addressing heat island effect and as well as beautifying the site was a priority for the city. Neil may want to expand on, ultimately how they laid that out. But, one of the city's conditions was to significantly increase the number of shade producing trees on site.
Correct. And
Neil,
we are,
if you wanted to
how many
address.
trees we're going to be planting, and also
Right.
the amount of money that we will be receiving for future planning.
Right. Yeah. To give the context there, basically we had determined a number that was in excess of 125 trees on site that we were looking on being able to provide. There was concern from Robinson Properties Group about having quite that number on site, especially within the interior of the site to that volume, because obviously the long-term objective here is to continue to seek and explore redevelopment opportunities during the 10 years and then obviously at the end of the term of the agreement, where those would be, we'd be putting those in potentially only to be pulling them right back out 10 years later. So we came up with a creative solution. It is a combination of having 86 total shade providing trees on site, and then basically we derive some value for the remaining trees, and rather than plant them on site, those will be put into a tree enhancement fund that would be provided to the city. I believe the value of that is $16,000, which would enable the city to plant those trees, anywhere else in the city.
Thank you. And when we talked about the entrances, we wanted green and, like you said, shade trees. And we're talking about the possibility of putting them into large planters. Is that still the idea? And have we identified the trees? At the entrances to the actual swap meet area, sorry, not the driveway entrance.
Neil, would you like to address that?
Sure. We have come up with concepts for that, and we remain flexible. For example, initially, we had proposed to put palm trees at the entrances, but I know staff felt that the priority for the council was, and we were proposing that because we felt it kind of made a grand entrance. But staff felt that the priority for the council was shade. So in that example, we agreed to not do palm trees and go with the shade tree. But I know our architect has specific ideas for the trees that he's detailed. I don't have it in front of me. But again, shade being one of the priorities. And also, as you can see by the drawing in front of you, basically the entire perimeter with our adding 35 trees is going to be covered with trees, not only at the entrances, but just completely along the perimeter, as well as some trees that we've added at the entrances. And as far as if we can keep them in the planters, I don't recall off the top of my head which, if any, we're proposing to do that with.
Okay. If I would like to make a suggestion, I think good trees that look beautiful too, right at the entrances, if they are in planter boxes around the swap meet entrance, the walking entrance. Multi-trunk strawberry trees are pretty beautiful. Those are good trees. And then also there is a lot of maintenance, or not maintenance, sorry. A lot of construction that's going to be going on. And what was the final price tag of all of these updates?
It's right now the budget is about $2.5 million.
Thank you. And in part of that, we will be redoing the parking lot, these shade structures, restroom, updated food area. And are we losing vendor spots?
No. No,
Thank
we're
you. And then
also removing the trash area, which, as you may recall, is kind of oddly right in the middle of the customer experience, and we're moving that away off into the corner, and we're creating a performance area. Some of the, if you look on the right-hand side, which I know it's very small on the screen, but some of the specifics in terms of the elements are under those project goals. The other thing I might mention to you is that the agreement also is quite unusually strict on us in terms of the maintenance obligations. I know Council Member Mendoza brought it up, and since you're talking about landscaping, I mean, it literally, not only are we required to maintain the landscaped area neat, clean, well manicured, but there's also elements of this that if there are dead shrubs, dead branches, we're required to, in a timely manner, remove those. So, you know, we're investing quite a lot into what's already a successful experience and successful business, and we want to make sure to continue to do that. So we were willing to agree to those things.
And then I think, you know, I'm actually very happy about so many of the improvements that we want to make happen here at the swap meet. I think it's long overdue, but I also have concerns. I know we're part of this, we're looking at also including entertainment, which I've been asking for, and I'm glad that we're looking at. But also part of it is the beer and alcohol. And so that will be going, the company will be applying to ABC to see the recommendations or the feedback from ABC involving alcohol.
Yes.
Beer related. And in typical other swap meets that do have the beer and alcohol, are the sales typically contained to one general area, or do you have multiple vendor spots throughout, or located throughout, or it really depends on the ABC recommendations?
Heidi, do you want to address that one?
Yeah, so swap meet industry standard is you usually have one main area next to your entertainment area, and then you also have a few kiosks throughout your property where you do sell beer or wine. We are looking to be just like other swap meets where shoppers can walk around actually drinking beer and holding it. So we're not going to have them exclusive to just one area, which some places call a beer garden. We are applying for a wall-to-wall permit.
Thank you. And City of San Fernando may be unique in this because the City of San Fernando police officers, they actually do work and patrol the swap meet, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so part of this is if there is an overpour or if there are passing on to minors of alcoholic beverages, would that be, and maybe this chief can chime in on this, would that be a function of SFPD helping or making sure that that doesn't happen? Or are there going to be extra security guards? What's typical in your other swap meet areas?
So I currently oversee our Vineland swap meet, and we do sell beer on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday. And we do have sheriffs there with us for if we do have any situations that happen. We do have a lot of signage up. We do train our employees to really look for, the signs of someone maybe being overly intoxicated. But what we do is we create a partnership with our police department or our sheriff's department when actually running the operations.
Okay, and Chief, what are your opinions on the alcohol and us, doing extra rounds with the alcohol, or I don't know if it is extra work. What is your opinion on this?
I think this can work. I think that they have the experience from their other swap meets selling beer on the weekends. I think this will work out for us as long as we work together in partnership and make sure the guidelines are held to a high standard and we monitor it properly and make sure everything is done properly. I think it'll work. I think it's been long overdue, and as long as nobody gets out of hand, doesn't ruin it for everybody, I think it'll work out very fine for our city.
Thank you. And then in regards to this as well, are we going to be looking for alcohol sales just on the weekends as well, or are we going to be looking for during the week?
Just on Saturday and Sundays would be the 2 days that we sell alcohol.
Okay. And what, if any, input have we received from any of the vendors on this floor plan?
I haven't shared this floor plan with the vendors specifically, just because it's been such a draft that we've been working through at this point. But
Yeah.
if you're asking the question regarding alcohol, they do want beer sold at their property.
Oh, no, I believe that.
Another swap meet.
For the vendors, it's really just, we didn't want to share something that hadn't been approved, but we really just utilized our experience in having over the decades owned and managed many swap meets. And for the vendors, the only changes are going to be improvements, improvements in the experience, improvement in the design, remodeling of the restrooms, more trees. And so, I think when we showed you the presentation and some of the other council members, we showed you the photos comparing what we're proposing to other meets in Southern California. And this really is going to be head and shoulders above the others in terms of the experience that it offers. So for the vendors, this is only an improvement. It's not like we're moving dramatically, changing the spacing or the spots or how they're laid out. It's really just enhancing everything around.
Okay. And then, so I would like to also talk about part of the MOU in the past, I guess dating back to 2007, I believe, is in regards to steps or looking to see what is feasible if this property is feasible for redevelopment. And can you walk me through what steps the company has taken or what does take in order to see if it is a feasible project or not to redevelop?
Sure. So yes, the MOU requirement initially when we bought the property, and which was extended over the years, was for us to actually pursue a retail development. So it wasn't just redevelopment in general. It was the council at the time and over the years as we got extensions, was very focused on retail redevelopment. And retail is actually we run swap meets, but we actually, we have industrial buildings. We've been involved in office, but retail is really our bread and butter. We own shopping centers all through Southern California, some in the Pacific Northwest and some in Hawaii. So we're very well connected with not only the brokers, but the tenants, who really would drive the demand for a center. Our executives and staff go to conferences on a regular basis throughout the year, meet with tenants and to meet with brokers. So basically, we're just, in general, we're out in the marketplace. And over the last 17 years since we've owned this, when we would go to one of these conferences or when we meet with a major tenant, this is one of the many sites that they'd be able to take a look at. And aside from that, just because we're already well known in Southern California as a retail developer, we often will get calls. Like when Kohl's came out into the marketplace probably 12 or 13 years ago, they called us because they knew we had many properties. And they said, we'd like to go into Southern California with 20 or 30 stores. And we actually did 4 Kohl's stores with them, similarly with Home Depot and others. So we're well connected. They often will call us even without us putting the properties in front of them. So this was a site, because of the competitive opportunities in the area, because we're in many ways not right on a freeway, which in and of itself isn't necessarily a killer, but it certainly helps to be close to a freeway. Just for a variety of reasons, we were unable to gain interest from any of the major retailers. And certainly, I would say that probably represents the first 10 to 15 years. And then certainly the Amazon effect that many of you've read about, that's impacted so many retailers, so many malls, was a further setback to retail development and an opportunity for retail on this site. And now, of course, in the last 7-8 months with COVID, retail has been so decimated and the entire sector is retrenching that even if there had been an opportunity with Amazon and its effect, that's fully at an end. So this is, I think the more important way we look at this is ultimately this is a retail site. We have the best retail center we have is this open air, we call it a swap meet, but it's really an open air shopping center where people come and can shop for a variety of goods. We're going to be enhancing the food area, as many of you'd asked for, and enhancing the entertainment area. So we've pursued retail. It's just hasn't been feasible from early on and has only become less and less feasible and really impractical as the economy and as conditions around us have evolved.
Thank you. To me, it does seem like it is close to a freeway. It's like maybe 3 large city blocks away from the 118 freeway.
Right.
Possibly even closer. It's closer to the freeway than our downtown mall.
Yeah.
Even comparable to the whole Home Depot area. And then so I know recently the city did, it sounds like you're reaching out to businesses or even receiving calls from businesses. It really draws on attending and networking conferences. I know the city of San Fernando, we just recently reached out and had Cosmont companies go out and send out an RFQ for a development plan. And it seems like in the past, you said it was for strictly retail, correct?
Correct.
And I 100% agree with you that 100% retail is just not feasible in today's day and age. It would have to be a mixed use area. But what, if any, RFQs have you sent out or do you send out as a company? Or would you even do that for this?
Well, we've done it in the past, but because our agreement with the city was very clear that we were supposed to be pursuing retail development. So just in good faith, that's what we've been pursuing. And we've submitted reports on a semi-annual basis detailing, which I'm sure the staff has for years, detailing all of our efforts. But no, we have not pursued other alternatives because we've kind of come to see that, while a new retail development with big box retailers is not feasible, enhancing existing retail development seemed to be both what we wanted to do and consistent with what has been expressed to us over the years in terms of council's interest to have a retail center here.
And Tim or Nick, in regards to this new MOU and the extension of 10 years, and to make it clear, it's an extension of 10 years, but the contract is over on 2023. Part of that and having them look into retail, that's not exclusive retail, and we wind up getting ourselves caught in this exact same conundrum, correct?
That is correct. So really, we're going the opposite direction from how the existing MOU kind of narrowly defines what the city is looking for. We're open to a multitude of uses, and since during my time here, we've discussed many things industrial. We've talked about studios. We've talked about mixed use developments that incorporate residential. We're interested in highest and best use of the site moving forward for the next 50, 100 years. Maybe that's a swap meet, but probably not. And there's no constant but change, so we anticipate the world continuing to evolve and a new higher and better use being available. And the terms of the MOU before you now it enables that flexibility.
And if I could add, as we mentioned when we met with many of you, our business has been closing swap meets. So we had over a dozen swap meets, and we had several dozen drive-in theaters, and our business has been closing those. So in the long run, just to be clear, we will continue, even though the MOU does not require this, we will continue to be open to redevelopment opportunities that let us hold this site and stay in the community in the long run. We're making a major investment. We want to be here with the swap meet, but it is possible that in the next several years we would come back with some other proposal. But so and now that we are no longer restricted to retail, we can start to consider other uses in the long run for redevelopment.
And I think that's good. It's good not to be restricted solely to one expectation. I think the design is a lot of what all of our council members have been asking for. I think now in the day of COVID, the swap meet probably is the best use for today. May not be the best use for in 5 years from now. But I'm also haven't been convinced that there has been a true or a hard look at this over the last couple of years to see if a redevelopment is actually possible or feasible. And then now that we had COVID, this was brought to us, and this is a great plan, but I'm just not convinced that the CUP was actually followed through, and we actually really did do our due diligence and dive deep into seeing if we could actually make a feasible redevelopment of this site. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that our next council member to speak is Vice Mayor Hector Pacheco.
Thank you. Thank you to the Robertson folks for attending our meeting. We've had several meetings over the last year and a half or 2 years since I've been on council. I did want to just make some preliminary comments to the public about this project and about the hard work that went into it. To the Robertson folks, I just want to open up to you briefly. You have the floor. You see some of the comments that our community has about the swap meet and the what's the word, blight that they find the swap meet kind of poses to our neighborhood. How would you respond to that?
I think we didn't have the renderings as part of the packet, but Vice Mayor Pacheco, I know that you've seen the renderings, and several of the other council members have as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you will find, and the community will find, that as once we've completed these improvements, this will be the nicest swap meet in Southern California, based on at least all the other ones that we've toured. We're making a significant investment. There's going to be a significant improvement of the aesthetic experience. We would love help. One of the letters that you received was about all the vendors on Glen Oaks. We would love help removing those vendors off of Glen Oaks. I think it may actually be illegal given their proximity to the swap meet, but I know the challenge there has been that many of those vendors are in the city of Los Angeles. But any outreach that city can help us with to the city of Los Angeles to remove those vendors, we'd love to bring those food vendors into the swap meet as part of the experience. We're going to be looking to add a diversity of food. So I just don't think I think that the significant changes we are making will upgrade and renovate this significantly, that this will be continue to be and improve a great experience.
Understood. Understood. And to the members of the community at large, to those who leave comments, we do hear you. Believe me when I say every one of the council members up here insisted on tangible change to the swap meet. The status quo was always unacceptable. And there will be significant changes to the swap meet, as you can see here on your screen. And if not, the council will be empowered to, discuss at a future time. None of us received everything we wanted, and this was definitely a compromise on many levels. The truth is, we're in an economic crisis right now. We're in a public health crisis. And shuttering a large business like this, risking the livelihoods of several families and friends of the vendors, as well as the entrepreneurs themselves, that's all at risk if we don't move forward. We all want something like this, such a big part of our community, to be utilized in innovative ways. We all have visions and imagination about what could be. But ultimately, we're pushing this forward now, or at least I support it now, because there are tangible improvements. They might be small in some eyes, but they're meaningful. And for what it's worth, in my conversations with the Robertson Group, not especially contentious or anything like that, nothing out of the norm from what I'm used to in my own career, but you really have come a long way in meeting us on our goals and our principles of putting our residents first, of beautifying our city, and really investing in what we have here, trying to get that idea of self-respect back, try to get the idea of pride about where we live and where we work. And so, yeah, there'll be more trees, there'll be more shade, there'll be more quality improvements. There's going to be higher maintenance standards that weren't a part of the previous contract. Something that I was adamant about that other council members chimed in on were the landscape barriers you see here. I think the implementation of landscape barriers like this with greenery and trees is not only a way to beautify the area and make it look different than just a big parking lot with, some tents and stuff, but instead, it's a little bit of a way to green the city, so to speak, to combat the pollution problems that we have here, to combat the heat island effect that occurs, in such a large space like the swap meet. And so you all have shown a commitment to meeting these principles of putting our residents first, of beautifying our city, of thinking outside the box a little bit. And while it's not everything that we hoped and dreamed for, we've made strides and we're going in the right direction. And I think that, if everybody holds up their end of the bargain, it's going to be a better swap meet than it is now, and than it was last year, and it was the year before. I think the maintenance standards around the graffiti, trash, cleanliness, security, lighting are all going to be welcome changes. And I'll just end my comments briefly on the importance of the COVID-19 guidelines. Earlier in the year, I was very skeptical, we'll say, about reopening the swap meet in the first place, of it being a super spreader. of thousands of people going through, in the weekends and so forth. And so I hope you all, you realize and you get it that our community is holding you to a high standard of cleanliness and safety when it comes to COVID-19. And we hope that you can have an open line of communication with our city hall to ensure that these protocols and guidelines are being followed, that are being addressed, and are being taken seriously, so to speak. And so I look forward to holding everybody's feet to the fire, so to speak, and making sure we make progress on these improvements and really take the comments that we hear from the public to heart. And so thank you to the community for being involved with this. Thank you to Robertson for being, a collaborative partner. There's still a lot of work to do. We're not best friends, but we are in this together. And I think this is going to be a step in the right direction. So I will end my comments with those remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. I concur with the Vice Mayor. I think he spoke very articulately on this. Are there any other questions or comments from the council? There being none, I will move to approve item number 9 per staff recommendation. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
No.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
No.
Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
Mayor Fajardo.
Yeah, motion carries. I will step away momentarily, return in approximately 5 minutes. At this time, though, I would like to actually go to item number 11. If there is not sufficient time for item 10, we will do that at the beginning of our next meeting in December. But I will be back shortly. And Vice Mayor, if you would like to continue on item 11.
Sure. Let me change windows here. Bear with me, please. Okay. On to item number 11. The discussion of the use of Prop A transit funds. Mr. Kimball, would you like to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Actually, Director of Public Works, Matt Baumgartner, has been eagerly awaiting his presentation all night. So take it away, Matt.
Mr. Kimball, I'm not able to share my screen. Is there, oh, there, thank you. 1 second. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Just a very quick presentation on bus stop improvements using Proposition A funds. Just as a reminder, going back a couple months ago, I presented on this issue. A little bit of background: Proposition A is a sales tax measure that was passed in 1980. It's returning funds to local jurisdictions on a per capita basis that have to be used for public transit benefit. Typically, we see about $500,000 a year in Prop A funds, and $12,500 of which is allocated to the City Council, and each council member is able to direct that expenditure of $2,500. And historically, this has been used for bus transportation for events in the community, for schools. But due to COVID restrictions, back in the June 15th budget meetings, there was a motion that was included that asked for a potential reallocation of part of a council member's funds toward sidewalk repairs. So in August 17th, we presented to council and discussed the use of Proposition A funds. One of the things that we found out when we spoke to Metro was that Prop A funds are restricted, improvements are restricted to within 25 feet of a bus stop. So we did a survey of the bus stops. There's 75 of them total in the city, and found that sidewalks, generally speaking, within that 25-foot area of a bus stop were found to be in a satisfactory condition. So it really wouldn't be a good use of our funds. But we did note that there were 10 stops that are sign-only locations where there's no bench or shelter, while most stops are bench-only locations with no shelter. Other potential uses, improvements, in addition to the sidewalk repairs, installing the benches and shelters, you can make improvements to bus pads or trash receptacles, but we don't really need to do that. So we were kind of focusing in on the cost-effective improvement of installing benches. And if you can look here at the bottom, if we want to install a bench, it's roughly $1,250. And this is based on data we have from a few years ago. And I just increased that just to be on the safe side, versus roughly $10,000 for installing a new shelter at any one location. So with the total amount of $12,500 available to the council, you wouldn't really be able to do very much by installing a shelter. But with $1,250 per bench, you do have the opportunity to make some improvements throughout the city. So just focusing on a list, like I said, there are 10 bus stops that are sign only. And what I've shown in red are the locations where we really can install bus stops. And so for the 4 locations that are not in red, generally speaking, the sidewalk is too narrow. There's parkways with grass. There's just really not enough room to install both a bench and also maintain ADA compliance with for the pathway along that bench. So we focused on the 5 locations, and what I've done is very quickly, I just have photos of each of those locations. And let me go back real quick. We have 4 locations that are on Glen Oaks, 1 at Truman and Workman, and then 1 at San Fernando Mission and Mott. That is an ideal location right next to the San Fernando Elementary School. So I'll just run through these photos real quick so you just have an idea of what we're talking about. So if you look at this, between the tree and this light post here, the light post has the sign for the bus stop. This is really our opportunity to put in a bench. So there would be a location, potential location here. This is a commercial location right outside this Linzer facility at Glen Oaks and Griswold on the northeast corner. Moving toward Hubbard now to the west. We have a bus stop at Glen Oaks and Brand right out in front of this apartment complex. The sign is right here. Here's the tree, and then basically where I put this little cartoonish blue box is where we would have an opportunity for installing a bench. Moving on to locations at Glen Oaks and Orange Grove, we have an opportunity to install a bench between the 2 catch basins here. We could potentially put in 1 bench right there. And then looking at the other side of Orange Grove on the northeast corner, we have an opportunity to put 1 here next to the sign. Moving on to Truman and Workman, it's pretty narrow here. I did note that it's kind of tight, but it's kind of a busy area, so it might not be a bad idea. We could feasibly fit in a bench right here, the blue box showing where the sign is right here, the trash receptacle here. But it is a little tight in that area, but I believe we could fit in 1 bench at that spot. And then this is the outside the San Fernando Elementary School. Can't really see it in this photo, but the sign is where you see a shadow casted on the street. So between that sign and this palm here, you have a potential of putting 1 spot. You can install another bench over here, and that would really give you the 25 feet from this location here. And this is a general idea of kind of the type of bench we'd be installing, these black metallic benches where maybe 2-3 individuals could sit. And just a quick summary of the cost estimate. Given these 6 locations, there'd be 1 at each of these locations and 2 at the San Fernando Elementary School for a total of 7 benches. And using that estimated cost I had of $1,250 per bench, you're looking at roughly $8,750 to install 7 benches. And I did a little quick math here. If we're able to install at these 6 locations and we're only left with 4 locations in the city, that would 95% of our bus stops would now have a bench. So just to give you an idea of what the improvement will give the city, we'd be going from roughly 87% to 95% of our city's bus stops would now have a bench location where someone could sit. And I believe that's it. So if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Great. I am back.
Thank you. Oh, great.
Before I go to the council for questions, I actually had a discussion with the prior city manager a number of years ago regarding having more benches. And one of his concerns, and I just wanted to see if you can give some context for this, is that they are sometimes used as areas where people will sleep for the homeless. And he felt that without a plan to actually have enough housing in place, that having these park benches might have an unintended consequence. And that might seem like an odd way to conceptualize this, but it was a conversation I had a number of years ago and wanted to get your feedback on it.
Yeah, I mean, that is always a possibility. I think if you went with these type of benches where you have a separator between, they're probably a little bit harder to be able to stretch out and sleep. Doesn't mean that couldn't happen, but I think if you went with a smaller bench with some handrails in between 2 seats, it probably makes it a little bit harder to achieve that. So if that is a particular design feature that the council would like, I could look into that for these metallic benches.
Okay, well, having said that, we'll go back to a regular order of questions and comments. Councilmember Ballin, followed by Gonzalez.
I support the benches 100%. I'm very concerned about the senior community, the special needs community, and of course, at this moment, a lot of young mothers that they don't have a vehicle, and it's nice to sit down at a bench with your child or your baby. So I'm 100% supportive. I have no questions other than to say I support.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you. Kind of shocked we didn't have this conversation before today. I think that this is extremely needed. And I have a couple questions in regards to the type of shelter. When you pulled up that one and it said it's approximately 10,000 for a structure.
Yes.
What kind of structure are we looking at? Because I know we have 3 or 4 different types of, maybe even 5 different types of structures here in San Fernando. We have the beautiful black ones that say San Fernando with LED lighting. Then we have the ones with the glass cover that Metro did for us over on Truman. And then we have the older ones that look like they have the Spanish style roof to them. We have a bunch of different ones. Do you know which one that one is?
I think the 10,000 includes some level of lighting, LED lighting, that does add to the cost, obviously. Probably what you're typically seeing along the trolley stops, those would be what's typical. Unfortunately, I didn't pull a photo of those shelters, but they are surprisingly expensive. And again, that was pulling from numbers from a few years ago. So it could actually be higher than that now. But the glass ones that Metro put in, the green frosted glass, that's obviously getting even a lot more expensive than what we're talking about here. But this is not, they're not cheap to install, unfortunately. It would, what I'm thinking of, the $10,000 variety would be what you would see at those trolley stops. Nothing too fancy, with probably some electrical for some lighting.
I guess those black ones that we have for our trolleys are, I think, even nicer than the ones that Metro threw in for us. And I've even seen and had discussions with mural committee with Councilmember Balin, is that I've seen in different areas where there's bus shelters and they have like a backing of kind of like a metal crate or metal mesh type thing. And they actually paint that area, and the schools in that area hang art or paint murals there in the bus shelters. And I think that's a beautiful idea for some of our bus shelters. And it would be nice if we can actually put a bus shelter at the school. But do we know if a bus shelter is even needed there in regards to how many onloadings and offloadings that we have in comparison to the rest of the city?
Yeah, I don't actually have data on the usage, but anecdotally, what I've heard from staff is that the San Fernando Elementary School is heavily used, that stop. So in all honesty, I think that would be a good candidate for a shelter. If we were to do it, let me bring up that photo real quick, Councilmember Gonzalez. If we were to do it at this location, due to the 25-foot requirement, we would have to take out the palm so we can put it in there. And I don't know if that would hurt anybody's feelings, but that would probably wouldn't be a difficult thing to do. We could put it in here. My understanding, it is a heavily used stop in non-COVID times, so it is something that
I can imagine.
Yeah.
We've had individuals have funerals for chopped down palm trees in the city before.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I've been on the record before not being too big of fans of palms in comparison to other beautiful trees that we can do. And then in regards to the different types of styles of benches, those benches are good, the ones that you had. Another kind of deterrent that you can have in place is if that's available and maybe even costs less money, is that style of bench without the backing. So you just have the hump in the middle.
Sure.
And what I've seen in other cities, I think Santa Monica has them, really cool, is instead of having a bench, they have like a concrete, looks like a sofa almost, or a concrete love chair, or a concrete like lazy boy. So it's just like big enough for like one person, and they'll have like maybe two. It looks really, really nice. But I think if we're going to talk about bus shelters, I would like to have a bus shelter there at the school. So what would be the possibility if, because it sounds like it would potentially be best if all council members give their money so that we can put benches throughout the entire city. But it sounds like San Fernando Elementary in particular is in need of a shade structure. What would be the possibility, hopefully for the future, if I donate all of my funding to go for the shade structure in regards to a city match in the future, or maybe other council members wanting to chip in to help get a shade structure there?
Well, one thing I'll mention to Councilmember Gonzalez is
it's going to be more because of that palm.
Staff has indicated to me, this is something I found out last week, that we actually have some funds from Metro that we need to use by summer of next year for the purpose of putting in some shelters. So we could actually, if this is a location that council feels would be better served by a shelter, we could, look at this as something that we do for that project in the summer, if there's a preference for that, because there will be some other locations, some other bench only locations that might serve well to be ideal shelter locations. So we could delay this particular location and look at this for the summer as part of those Metro funds that we need to use.
Okay, and then so if I was to make the motion or amendment, whatever it may be, that my funds are to go towards this, but say we have the adequate amount of funds in that grant, would that just be reinvested, or I guess that grant money can be used for something else, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I think we would be able to use your Proposition A contribution along with those Metro funds for this work, so that wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, well then that would be whatever the motion may be. Whoever does make it, I would like to have in there that my funds will go to put a bus shelter there at the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mendoza?
Well, I like the idea of having the benches. As Councilmember Ballin said, there are some seniors that are unable to stand for long periods of time, and maybe that might be a deterrent because there is no bench for them not to use the trolley system. I do like the idea of having the shade. I think that's because these days it's just getting so hot that that's another deterrent from taking the trolley. And I was also considering giving my funds for my Prop 8 funds for the benches as well. I would like to see the shaded ones, as possible. I guess the one Council Member Gonzalez is referring to, is that the one like at Santa Rosa Church on the site on what is it, Mont? Councilmember Gonzalez? I'm not there.
Sorry, it's on Mott in San Fernando Mission. It's next to San Fernando, that location right there, San Fernando
Yeah.
Elementary School.
But the one with the shade, are you referring to the one over there by Santa Rosa Church on by Workman and Mott?
That does have a
Is
shade
that what it
structure?
looks like? Yeah, it has a shade.
Yeah, there's several ones actually up and down San Fernando Mission itself. There's one there on the mall, San Fernando Mission and San Fernando Road, and a couple of them down. Yes.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, so I'm interested with those with the shading wherever it's needed. In terms of the tree, is there a possibility of moving the tree? Does it have to be killed? Do we have to, like, if you remove it, does it kill the tree?
I mean, I'm not sure how well the palm would do in transporting, but we could try that if it's important that it remain a palm, or we could remove that and install another tree over on this side of the benches or shelter. If that is a desire of the council, we could look into that. I think we could probably install a new tree if it's difficult to transport the palm.
Or moving the sign over on the other side of the tree? Is that a possibility?
That would be a question to Metro. I think they have these things kind of scoped out themselves, but we could explore. That's another thing we could explore too, if that were important. Unfortunately, I should have included a larger picture. You could see how much space we have going in the other direction. There's probably another tree within another 25 feet. So we might bump up against another issue with that. But I think there's some flexibility. I'm sure we can make something work.
Okay, so I mean, if we do make a motion that we those of us that want to contribute towards the benches, then we could do that, and then you can come up with more of a plan on what type of bench or what kind of funding we have or that we need to get the shaded benches. Is that a possibility?
Sure. Yeah, I think as part of that larger project we need to do with our Metro funds, I think it's about $150,000 is what staff told me last week that we need to use by the end of the summer. And I think those are specifically for bus shelter locations. So given that $10,000 number I was sharing with you earlier, that would buy you roughly 15 shelters with benches throughout the city, if that is depending on the design and everything. But I think that would get us somewhere in the ballpark of 15 shelter locations. That would be a separate project, but I think council could direct the funds be put toward that project, as I was talking about with Councilmember Gonzalez.
Okay, because the other thing I had divided the 8750 that it would cost for the 7 benches, and that would be like $1750 per council member, right? For the total amount of what you had proposed there. And I was actually wanted to give the remaining amount of my portion, that if that's what we agreed upon, would be for ridership, so that those taking the metro wouldn't have to pay, because I guess they're having to pay now and pay their fee to ride the trolley, correct? They're now paying the 25 cents to ride the trolley.
I believe 25 cents is the fee.
So I wanted to use the remaining amount to offer the free ridership to those that use the trolley, which Mr. Kimball said it might last till the end of the year. 700 would be about $750, but that would be something that I would like to do as well.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Matthew. This is really neat. I think you have a lot of support here. I'll also like for some follow-up in the future about, what we can do to make the entire bus stop, renovated, etc. One thing I do want to earmark for everyone is I do think we need trash receptacles. Personally, I think the trash situation in San Fernando could be much improved. And so maybe if you come back at some point, individually or at a meeting or whatever, if you can kind of let us know what the impact on our budget would be to have trash receptacles at every bus stop, and how that would impact our budget to purchase them, how that might impact our trash contract, if at all. And so not that I don't think improving the bus stop piecemeal is a bad idea. Honestly, it's probably the only way we're able to do it. However, I think if we keep a vision for what a completed, fully stylized bus stop could be before we embark on, the first step, so to speak, that would give us a pretty good idea of where we're headed. It will let the community know where we're headed and what we're trying to achieve. And that will also inform our budget discussions when the time is ripe for us to consider those improvements. Because like I said, I personally want to make the trash issue something that comes to the forefront during our budget discussions. And so if we can include that little aspect at some future point into these bus stops, I think it will go a long way in keeping the area clean and looking nice and so forth. Otherwise, fully support my funds going to these. I really do like the fact that some of them are on Glen Oaks, given the fact that Glen Oaks is really going through some major changes. And so I think this will be another tangible improvement that we can offer our residents along that corridor. So thank you again, and looking forward to getting this underway.
Thank you. Well, I'm surprised how popular this program is. I know that for a number of years, I've tried for us to use our Measure A funds for community improvements as opposed to the buses, which obviously bring value to people. But I think that this has a bit more of a lasting impact. Mr. Matthew, can these funds also be used for cross signals? Because there are a number of residents, Measure A funds that is, or Prop A funds. There are many residents who have asked for an increased number of cross signals for busy streets. Is that something that is feasible, or can it not be used for that?
I would have to look. I mean, if it happened to be, if the signal happened to be right by or within 25 feet of the sign itself, the stop sign, I think that's how they measure it. So I'd have to verify that, but my guess is it would be challenging to meet that criteria for most of our spots. There'd be one or two candidates that could qualify, but I would have to see if that if the whole signalization actually takes you to across the street, they might not
Right.
say that qualifies. So I would have to look into that one. That is a good question. I would say that the majority of our stops wouldn't meet the criteria of the 20 within 25 feet, but I can look into that.
Well, just curious, but at least making a change this year as to how we use the funds, hopefully it will inspire future years worth of funding in terms of how we continue to improve the city. So I think that this is a great step. And I'm not sure if there are any other questions. It appeared to me that the motion would be to approve staff's recommendation as stated in item 11, with giving council members the ability to locate a bench in an area supported by both the council member and staff. Does that sound correct from what I heard? Matthew?
Yeah, that sounds correct to me. Yeah,
Okay.
I would just, if there's any particular direction as to dedicating some of it towards a future shelter, I could make note of that as well.
Okay, so I will make the motion to approve item 11 per staff recommendation, with allowing council members to also dedicate some of his or her funds towards a future shelter, and or to designate a bench in an area that is suitable both to the council member and staff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza,
You're on mute, council member.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
and Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are now at item number 12. This is a consideration to adopt an ordinance regulating the review and approval of art murals on private property. Mr. Kimball?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd actually love to start with the feedback from the mural ad hoc, if they want to take us through some of the work that went into this, and then staff can get into the details of the proposed ordinance, which is substantially similar to what it was a few years ago when it came to City Council with a couple tweaks. But I would defer initially to the ad hoc if you don't mind.
Certainly, they may carry on with this item. Ad hoc?
Councilmember Gonzalez, you want to kick it off? You've been on the ad hoc for so long.
Thank you so much. Actually, extremely excited about this. It's been a labor of love. So this is pretty exciting. We discussed the possibility of doing murals not only on private property, but our own property. Unfortunately, we weren't able to bring back that one yet. So this one basically consists of the process that would take place in order to be able to put a mural in on a private property. And we discussed what areas to be able to put it on, which would include our commercial corridors, as well as residential areas, as long as it is in, for example, alleyways, because part of murals process is to be able to beautify areas. And if we can identify areas that have a high graffiti rate, I think that we should try to prioritize them. And a lot of times those are back alleys. And that way we can beautify them with murals. And one of the things that we really wanted to do is try to incorporate our youth. I think that's been one of the main goals of all council members since day one, that every single one of us has gone up on this dais. And so the fee is going to be $130, which is 50% of what it would cost to be able to have our staff review it and send it to the committee. And $130. And that fee can be partially or fully waived if there is an educational component to it. And I think Councilmember Balin and I both agree that we want to make sure that it is an educational aspect to this. We don't want just the artist to be able to go out there, do the sketch on the wall, and then have the kids come over and say, okay, kids, paint this. It would be great to be able to see individuals to be able to go through the whole entire process and learn what it is like to actually sketch out or even plan this. So the purpose would be there'd be a public hearing, and what we would do is artists or individuals that were interested in doing the mural, they will bring it forward to the planning department, and then the planning department will review it. Would have to put up a notice on the wall that is designated to receive the mural. You will have to put a rendering of what that mural will look like. It will go to the Recreation and Parks Committee, which will take a vote on it, and then they have a designated time to be able to put up the mural. I forget it offhand. I believe it's a year, 2 years that they have to paint that. And I don't know if I'm missing anything else, but this is just really extremely exciting. And some businesses have reached out and they were looking at doing murals for their signs of their businesses, but that will not be allowed because that is actually part of our SB5 zone in the coding. So it's a little different than actual mural. And forgive me if I left anything out, but Councilmember Vela?
Yeah, I think, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 1 year. It has to be up for 1 year. Is that it, Nick?
Yeah. There's a minimum time it needs to be up. And they have, I think, a year from when the permit is issued. And just from a quality control standpoint, after there is a final inspection, so the actual permit isn't released until 7 days after the final inspection. So when the muralist is done, they notify the community development department. They will go out and do a final inspection to make sure that the mural does in fact comply with what was approved by the Wellness Commission, and then they will issue a final permit. Obviously, if there is some discrepancy between what was approved and what was actually painted, or if there's a quality issue, we would not issue that final permit, and we'd work with the mural to make sure that the mural became in compliant. We start aligned with what was approved. So there are a number of checks and balances in this ordinance.
And then also,
Nick, I have one question. Excuse me, Councilmember Gonzalez. I have a question for you. If the mural request is submitted and denied, will the person submitting the application, will they be given a written document letting them know that they could, challenge that denial, that they can take it up to City Council for us to decide?
Yeah, so and Tim can jump in, but similar to any other permit that needs to go to, most permits go to the Planning Commission, but if an applicant is given all of the rules up front when they come and pull the permit. So we usually give them a reference document that has all the rules, including obviously as part of this, they would have to post a rendering of what the mural would be at the location, and all of that is the responsibility of the applicant. That information that's given to them upon requesting to pull a permit right off the bat will be appeal procedures. So if the applicant is denied, they are given written, they are notified of how they can appeal that denial or that decision by the Parks and Wellness Commission.
Thank you.
And also, something that was a little different than what we did in comparison to other cities is that some cities recommend like a 5-year plan. So if someone mural is put up, it has to stay up for 5 years. In ours, it is basically an agreement between the artist and the property owner of how long it will stay up there. And then because we didn't want to lock something down. And then there are some instances that the mural can be removed if there's substantial change to the building, if it changes hands, the property owner changes hands and wants to move on from the mural. There's just a couple of things that you can actually remove the mural for reasons. And I think that's it.
Okay, Mayor, take it away.
One thing, the only thing I think that the ad hoc did a great job presenting this. I think the only thing that I would add is that as it's written, permitted murals that would only be permitted in commercially zoned areas, and if in residential alleyways, they would not be not allowed in residential areas, again, other than alleyways, but they would be permitted in commercially zoned areas. Other than that, I think the ad hoc covered it all, and we'll be happy to address any questions.
Actually, I did have a question. Sorry about that. I know we talked about residential, but I mean commercial. So, for example, the commercial corridor along the metro line, all that is considered commercial and not industrial, or therefore allowing us to put murals all along that corridor. If it was to
I'll let Tim give a little more flavor, but you know, I checked with planning. Basically, commercial would be anywhere that's not residential. So industrial, manufacturing, commercial. Is that accurate, Tim?
If that's the intent, yeah, and we can specify that that incorporates, you know, manufacturing zones, commercial zones, anywhere where those uses are allowed.
Perfect. Thank you. And I would like to make sure that that was clear. Thank you.
Sorry, just a quick question for clarification. Commercial zones do include in some of the specific plan zones mixed use zones where commercial or residential would be allowed. I just want to make sure as point of clarification that a mixed use area that allows commercial uses, the intent would be to allow murals there. Is that correct?
So it would be mixed use. So it would be, I would think so, because that's still in our commercial corridor areas. I think when we're discussing residential areas, we're more discussing inside of you know, certain blocks. I could be mistaken. I don't think we had this conversation.
The discussion that I had, you know, been that the ad hoc have was mostly about not having on. There's not really anything. There's not a single family zoned area anymore. But what was single family residential? That's primarily single, even multifamily residential. But those are that exclusively residential zones. If it's mixed use or commercial use, that was something the council, the ad hoc was open to, especially in this commercial.
Great. Then the most accurate way to describe it is exactly that, to exclude it from residential only zones.
Except for, or with the exception of the alleyways.
Okay. So Mr. Campbell, just to clarify, it is not written that way, so it needs to be specified in the motion, or it is written that way and does not need to be specified?
It is written to say that they're permitted in commercially zoned areas and residential alleyways. So if we could just to make it very clear, let's just do murals are not permitted in residential only zoned areas, excluding residential alleyways.
Except for alleyways.
Yeah, except for residential alleyways. That's the recommendation from ad hoc.
Okay. Councilmember Mendoza, this time for real.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm glad I'm going to be able to vote on this item. But I do have one question, because when I spoke with, met with Mr. Howell on the murals, my one meeting and the mural ad hoc. But anyway, one thing that resonated was that his recommendation was that there be a muralist or someone that has experience with murals to oversee the projects. And I really didn't see that in here. But then I spoke with Mr. Kimball, and he mentioned that there's a liaisons in the cultural arts through the parks and wellness. And maybe Mr. Kimball, you can elaborate on that.
Sure, and I have the Julian is also on in case you know I fumble this, but yeah. So we have two per the bylaw the bylaws in the city code for the Parks and Wellness Commission. There are 2 liaisons currently that are non-voting sort of members of that commission that are, act as sort of experts in their field. And one of them, so right now, one of them focuses on sort of mural and public art, and that's their area of expertise. I believe his name is Mr. Raul Herrera. He's been involved in a number of murals in the city of LA and other areas. So that's his expertise. The other person, I believe, is more expertise in sort of music and dance arts. But that being said, the planning, the Parks and Wellness Commission has the authority to appoint the liaisons that they believe are the most pertinent and relevant to what their work involves. And if this ordinance is approved and this responsibility is given to the Parks and Wellness Commission, Julian will work with that commission to make sure that there is a liaison that does have that expertise that can help them through with recommendations on some of these murals applications as they start coming. And I just want to remind everyone that they probably won't be able to take applications at least until probably the end of January, beginning of February, because there's a second reading of this ordinance, then it goes into effect 30 days after that. So that brings us into the new year. So the Parks and Wellness has that opportunity to review the liaisons and make sure that they're appropriate for what their work duty will be. But there is currently a liaison that does have quite a bit of experience with murals.
Okay, so as long as we're able to do that and ensure that there's someone in place for that, then that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
No comments. Looking forward for this to pass. Thank you.
And I have no comments either. Is there a motion?
Great, then I will make the motion with the verbiage that was just given it to us, which would be murals are allowable in all areas that are not exclusively residential, except for residential alleys, correct?
And I will second that motion. Nick, we can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, no, it would be, murals are not permitted in residential only zones except for residential alleys.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
And with that, I second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
and Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are now at item number 13. We did discuss it very briefly at our last meeting, and this is regarding implementation of a whistleblower protection policy. Mr. Padilla, can you lead us on this item?
Yes, at the conclusion of the last discussion on this item, our office was asked to get some additional information, cost information, with respect to those cities that have an automated or anonymous call-in feature for their whistleblower programs. We were able to make contact with the company that is used by the city of Santa Monica. The company's name is I believe it's pronounced My Echo. And the service they provide for their fee includes a toll-free number, a texting option for submitting complaints, a PO box for written complaints, a custom landing page, and access to case management systems, including automatic notices of complaints, ability to track, respond and follow up on complaints through an online system. In speaking with the representatives of the company, they say that Santa Monica pays approximately in the neighborhood of $999 a year for this service. They have provided us with a rough quote, emphasis on the word rough, which they feel they can provide a service comparable to what Santa Monica receives for about $797 a year. Now, what is important to emphasize is that this service does not necessarily include an attorney or investigators or staff. It's simply a vehicle by which the city can better manage these types of cases. The city could certainly retain outside counsel for handling that, so that the service does not in and of itself include that, but it can become a vehicle for facilitating that. In discussing this with staff, we did make the observation that Liebert Cassidy is already under contract with the city to provide labor-related services. I have not had a discussion with them about whether this is something that could be added to their role as special legal counsel, but it might be something worth looking into in conjunction with maybe getting more detail from MyEcho on this service. So that completes my update. If there are any other questions, though, I'd be happy to answer.
I like the idea of having a different company outside of Liebert Cassidy. I think that they provide a relatively decent service, but at the same time, I think that an outside service might excel in this particular case. I think that the Santa Monica model is probably the best one. When you said $99 or $999, I was worried you were going to say $999,000. So I'm relieved to hear that it is just like very much a fraction of that. And to be honest, I think that there are probably ways to even improve upon this in terms of having something that is a little more robust, having something where there is, outside counsel, but I think that this is a step in the right direction. It's taken me a considerable amount of time to advance this as far as it has gone. And I would love for us to put that first step in place and hopefully over the years, see an evolution so that whistleblower protections are increased. But having said that, I'm satisfied with the research that you've done. And for the most part, the Santa Monica model. And so having said that, I will go to my council colleagues, Councilmember Ballin.
I move the item with the Santa Monica model.
Thank you. I will second that. And Councilmember Mendoza, any comments or questions before we take a vote?
No comments right now. No questions.
Vice Mayor?
No comments. Thank you.
And I miss Mr. Gonzalez because his box moved. Councilmember Gonzalez?
There we go. I have none.
Oh, okay. The motion, Mr. Padilla?
I would just make the observation, not to be a stick in the mud. This is agendized as a direction to staff. Right. So I guess the motion would be to perhaps have us maybe bring MyEcho in for a presentation to the council, perhaps, and discuss some sort of more specific proposal for the city. Would that be the direction?
And you have to prepare an ordinance as well, correct?
Yeah, we don't presently have a policy per se. I think it could preferably be adopted by ordinance, but I can also explore whether this could easily be adopted by resolution as well. But either way, we can come back at the earliest possible time with both, and perhaps even a presentation by the MyEcho people if that's the council's will.
I think that was the intent of the motion. Okay. And so having said that, does that consist with, or is that consistent with your intent, council member?
That's yes for me.
Thank you. For me as well. And I made the second. So therefore we will take a vote on this motion for the direction provided. Ms. Fritz?
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ballin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco?
Yes.
And Mayor Fajardo?
Yes, the motion carries. We are close towards the end of our agenda. We have two further items. Item number 14 is an update on the ballot measure, update on ballot measure SF, increasing the existing general purpose half-cent transaction and use tax. Fortunately, many of these ballot measures did fairly well in the county. I think that there were 8 or 9 of them. And the one that tanked was Diamond Bar. And Signal Hill was quite close, but I haven't followed up with it. But San Fernando is one of the fortunate cities where the constituents saw the value in collecting revenues before another agency does. And the ballot measure indicated that this would bring in probably around 1.1 million, although I could foresee it bringing in something even significantly more than that. During this time, I had the opportunity to speak to a lot of residents about the ballot measure, and I was really happy to see that people overall were satisfied with many of the uses of our Measure A money and the transparency forums that we had set up as a way to have oversight on this process. And so I brought this item forward so that Mr. Kimball can give some updates as to what the timelines are for us to receive these funds and how we can actually achieve many of the goals that were outlined in the ballot measure itself. I know that my colleague, Councilwoman Ballin, also had a ballot measure, a committee to support the passage of Measure SF. And so before I go to Mr. Kimball, I would like to see if Councilmember Ballin has any words she would like to add.
Yes, I do, but I need a drink of water first.
Okay.
I am thrilled it passed, of course, just like everyone else, but I did write something out because I didn't want to leave anyone out. The passage of Measure SF during this pandemic humbles me. First, I'd like to thank our residents for trusting us. With the additional quarter-cent sales tax increase, we will reinvest an additional $1 million plus per year in our city, and those dollars will allow us to repave more residential streets and sidewalks, improve park equipment and recreational programs, beautify the city by creating public art, murals, and planting more trees, better respond and recover from disasters such as COVID and earthquakes, implement energy efficient upgrades to city facilities to save taxpayer money, create free public Wi-Fi, and Nick, I hope you expand on that, reduce long-term debt, assist with local business improvement, job creation, and economic development, maintain San Fernando Police Department and Public Works projects. Although I headed up the committee, it takes a team to succeed, and I was blessed that money was contributed and many volunteered to help me. It is with a grateful heart that I thank the following who contributed to the successful passage of Measure SF. These are the good packs. You know, we saw what the bad packs could do, but these are the good ones. Blue Sky Pack, 1,850. Laborers International Union Local 300, 5,000. And I want to thank Sergio Rascon and Ernie Pantoja. And Southern California District Council of Labor PAC, 5,000. SEIU Local 721, 1,000. SEIU Local 721 and the San Fernando Public Employees Association members, Charles Leon. I want to thank these people because they did a lot of phone banking. Molly Rhodes, Mimi Soto, and President Frank Villapando of SFPEA, Richard de la Pena, Maria Calo, I don't know how to say her last name, you know how you say it, Joel?
Calleros.
Maria, who is it?
Calleros.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, her. Ruben Quintana, and all the volunteers who helped Mimi Soto Phone Bank, and a shout out to Bob Schoonover. Most important, I want to thank Mayor Fajardo for the guidance, fundraising, and directing me to the key services I needed to get the mailer, text message, graphic artist, printer, and door walkers. Our residents have spoken, and we are committed to being good stewards of Measure SF, sales tax revenue. Thank you all very much. And all the council members, I know that you all spoke to your friends and your neighbors and said, vote yes. And here we are today in a very good place. And now, Nick, take it away.
Thank you, Councilmember Ballin. So just kind of an update, although we haven't certified the election yet, I just looked, and the yeses for Measure SF was 4,500 plus, and the noes was 3,500. So by a pretty healthy margin, 56.5% to 43.5%, it was overwhelmingly supported by San Fernando voters. Which I think is a testament to how this council has really been a steward of Measure A funds to this point. I do believe that, so just so that for the public to know, this really just added to the existing ordinance, the Measure A ordinance. So this additional $0.25 will also be part of those the Measure A town halls that are required right now. This 0.25% will also be included as part of those discussions, not just Measure A. So just note that those transparency forms will continue, and they will continue to deal with these additional funds as well. From a timing standpoint, after the election is certified, we do have to send a copy of the certified ordinance that was approved by the voters to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, CDTFA. They will start an education campaign with local retailers, and the tax will be effective April 1st, 2021, when residents will actually start, or customers will start paying that increased 0.25%. And the city will start receiving revenues. A little bit will trickle in June, but most of it will start coming in July of 2021. So from a budget and cash flow perspective, we will be, these funds will be really budgeted through the next year's budget process. So the 2021/22 budget year. But obviously we've heard a lot of feedback through the Measure A forums to date, and on what the residents really want to see that those funds spent on. Wi-Fi was definitely a big one that was mentioned, especially through these COVID times. We're actually currently working with a company on energy efficiency improvements that we will be able to fund through, through energy savings. We'll be able to fund kind of financing some improvements. Since we have part of that is funding some upgrades to street lighting. And part of that upgrading the street lighting, you can actually make those street lighting nodes smart nodes. They can be Wi-Fi nodes and Wi-Fi enabled, those street lights. So we already started the discussions with that consultant. So they'll be looking at including, there is an additional cost, but now that we have a funding source for that additional cost, we can look at upgrading those to Wi-Fi that will create a Wi-Fi network throughout the city through our streetlights. It's a smart cities effort. So the timing was actually really excellent with that particular proposal. And it will, we still need to go through that process, but I think we're probably within the next 12 months should be able to get that up and running to the residents. And beyond that, I mean, there's another number of other initiatives that were put in the sales tax ordinance, including public infrastructure, reducing long-term debt, and just really looking at the potential ways to increase our labor force so we have more public safety and more maintenance people out there, addressing all the needs of the city. So that's all I have from staff's end. If you have any questions, really from a timing perspective, we're looking at budgeting those through the next year's budget process, which will start right about February.
Okay, and so I think that's great, Mr. Kimball. A lot of the questions that came up about its uses were related to potholes, and as an extension of that, pothole busters, improving more streets, not just some of the smaller residential streets that people have been yearning to see improved, but also another main street like Glen Oaks, but this time it being Arroyo. Many people have asked about making sure that the city is as clean as possible, at every corner, whether it's a walkway or a park, making sure that we pay down or that we have adequate funds for our retiree pensions. And again, as you mentioned, the Wi-Fi, having money for citywide Wi-Fi, and I think that this, smart cities / street lights venture is, extraordinary opportunity. It's coming up at exactly the right time. And so, how do we ensure the public of accomplishing many of these goals that we set out? And one of the things that I had spoken about, or why I even brought this forward in the first place, was looking at our retirement obligations and seeing that the city didn't have a plan to meet its retirement obligations for many of its workers who have been here for decades.
So with regards to specifically to that, we call that OPEB in the biz, but retiree health.
Exactly.
And it kind of dovetails on item 15 as well. But we'll be, after the first year, we're going to be coming back with pension obligation bonds and how we can save the taxpayers significant long-term money through that. We also want to be, through that process, we will be establishing a trust fund for both OPEB and potentially pension obligations. So by depositing by the city council through the budget process, designating a certain amount of funds to be put into this OPEB trust, it will make sure that funds are set aside in an irrevocable trust to pay, so that we are actually funding some of those benefits that have in the past been promised to employees without sort of a funding source. So a portion of this can be used as a funding source, and if we start putting away now, although we might need $5 down the road, if we put away $1 now, that dollar will grow to $5 over the time. So ultimately, instead of being on the hook for $5, the taxpayers are only on the hook for $1. We put it aside now, and that will grow over time in this trust, and again, saves taxpayers a significant amount of money down the road. So that OPEB trust will be coming back through this pension, as we present that pension obligation bond in the beginning of next year.
Excellent. And I know that Councilmember Ballin had a suggestion on how to use some of the monies, as well as the monies that have accumulated in our reserves. And did you want to talk about that now, Councilmember?
Yes, Nick, I wanted to ask you about, this is one of the items that's near and dear to the Vice Mayor's heart, is the trees. And I think because of our budget crunch, we weren't able to, we voted not to move forward with those trees along Glen Boulevard, I believe. And does this now give us that opportunity that we can allocate those funds?
Sure. Yeah, okay. No, definitely. So just again, from a timing perspective, realistically, we probably won't really receive funds until we may receive a tiny bit in this current fiscal year, which may be, the 25,000 or so that we were talking about during the budget process. Most of the funds will be through will be in next year's budget, and we would allocate them through the budget process. But I mean, if I think through mid-year, we'll want to evaluate that. Diego's on here as well. So at mid-year in February, he's going to come back with how our first 6 months have gone. We did a preliminary first quarter update. He did that back in September. So at that point, we can definitely look at restoring that $25,000 if that's something that council would look to do. And we could do it out of that, could be sort of our first measure SF expenditure, because again, we'll receive a small amount of funds in June, so it'll probably be about that 25 to 50,000. So.
Oh, 50,000 sounds good. I think Vice Mayor won't argue with that number. I have to ask you a question there, because I'm not sure exactly when we take care of this, or maybe Richard, you can answer the question. If the ad hoc, if we do go ahead and combine the ad hoc that the mayor had proposed, the tree ad hoc and the Green City ad hoc, and is that a future agenda item, or can we take care of combining those two ad hocs now?
Well, that would probably be something we would need to agendize for the
Okay.
next. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll take care of that during the week with Julia, that we combine those. Okay.
Council Member Mendoza.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank all the supporters who helped pass Measure SF and all the voters. They like to have a certain quality of life, and they know that those additional funds are certainly going to make a difference in our community. And I reiterate, Councilmember Ballin said everything, and a really heartfelt thank you to everyone who supported the measure. We'll continue with the town halls and continue with the transparency of how the measure, how our sales tax funds are spent. I'll make sure that we do that. And when is our next town hall, Mr. Kimball?
Mr. Ibanez will be working on that roundabout February.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And that'll be a very good town hall because it'll give people the opportunity to marinate over some of these ideas, or for these ideas to marinate with the residents so that they can come back and give us, give the city feedback as to how it should be allocated. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you. Yes, first and foremost, thank you all the residents for voting yes on this. I have no idea how huge that was for the city. And also Councilmember Balin for doing that. When I received the flyer, I was like, oh my God, thank you. We needed this. I should have thought of this. And I wish I was asked to donate money because I would have donated money too. But thank you so much for definitely doing this. Especially during this hard time, this is exactly what we needed. We needed this little extras to help us go a long way. There's so many things that we need this for. Pension, like I said, is one of them, but just to reinvest in our own people, reinvest in our city, do some facade improvements. There's so much that we needed. So thank you so much for this and for the people. Also, I would also like to suggest that really think about this and try to create an oversight committee. I think you can still have an oversight committee and still have public hearings. You're not getting rid of any public hearings. I really think the community should be involved and should be invested in this. And I hope that council at least discuss it for the future. When I talk to individuals, they wish that there was an oversight committee to this. So I hope that council takes that into consideration in the future, as I will be gone. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thanks. Thank you to staff for the hard work. Thank you so much to the leadership on council from Ms. Ballin and Mr. Fajardo and from the others. Although I absolutely question the prudence of passing a tax during a recession, I think that the voters spoke loudly and clearly. And honestly, it's just a numbers thing that our city needs more money for economic development, for street maintenance, for our public works and our SFPD and all that. So I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I do appreciate our commitment to transparency. I think the town halls and the public forums are so important to get the feedback from the community, from the mall association, from the chamber, from the residents, from all the stakeholders, really. And I encourage, and I will continue to do so, I encourage the community to participate and to send your ideas and thoughts. And you don't have to wait till the forum. You can let us know now. And I will echo the sentiment, the commitment of my colleagues about being good stewards of this tax money. We know what we have to do in terms of our deferred maintenance and our beautification efforts and our greening, and you can count on us to do so. And so thank you again to the voters and to everyone involved. Appreciate it. Truly.
Well, this is, a huge success for the city. I feel kind of bad for the other cities who haven't done this because they are going to find themselves in a really challenging position in the future. But our city council had the wisdom to put this forward. The residents had the wisdom to entrust us with this responsibility. And there's a lot of great things that this money will be used for. And Nick, I look forward to seeing that pension chart when you bring it, because that huge insurmountable mountain on the graph that looked like Mount Everest will hopefully start to look more like a little hill. When we start showing how by applying little bits of money, we actually pay off enormous amounts, going forward. And so I think that you have just general direction on items to come back with and how to structure it. And Councilmember Ballin will talk to you about the committee she would like to join and future funding resolution for those trees. And so I do not see any motion that needs to be made for this. But since we're talking about pensions and mountain graphs, we are going to item number 15, which is an update regarding the issuance of pension obligation bonds and filing of the judicial validation proceedings. I had a chance to catch up on this with Mr. Kimball. It has been an item that I think is enormous importance because it will save the city an extraordinary amount of money, millions of dollars over the next couple of decades. And so I wanted to see if Mr. Kimball or Mr. Ibanez could give us an update on this very important venture.
Sure. Yeah, pass it to Diego just momentarily. I just wanted to interject real quick. Item 10, for anyone that may be still on waiting for the crime statistics update, staff has requested that we actually pull that and put that on a future. I just wanted to.
I apologize. I thought that when I had moved it, that was understood, but thank you for clarifying that.
No
yes,
worries.
that has been moved given that we are approaching 10 o'clock and it might be easier to do at a future meeting. So now wrapping up our last agenda item, we are back at item 15. And Mr. Ibanez,
yes,
Kimball, one of you would like to manage this item.
I can take it from here, Nick. Good evening, council, mayor, and staff. Just to give everyone an update on where we are with our pension obligations. On Friday, we received word from Jones Hall, the city's bond counsel, that the validation judgment is complete. The court issued a validation judgment on Friday, 11/13. It went into effect on Saturday, 11/14, and there's a 30-day waiting period. And the earliest the city can issue bonds is on December 14th. We have started an RFP process to solicit bids for bond underwriters. Staff will come back to council during the second meeting in January to award that contract. And in terms of the amount of what we're looking to issue, it should not exceed our liability, which is currently at about 45 million. But we're still waiting on an actuarial report, an underwriter analysis, and more review before we make an actual determination of how much our bonds will be issued. And so given the timeline, we are pretty much on track and we're just sort of following an RFP process for now. That's a quick recap of where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Ibanez. Does the reduction of the Fed rate, does that have any impact on the amount of money we save overall by having more favorable terms tied to these bonds, or is it unrelated?
I believe, Nick, can you help me out on this one?
Yeah, so because I think most of the financing are tied to the federal funds. They're kind of basis points above the federal funds rate. So when the federal funds rate goes down, it creates usually a favorable environment. Sometimes there are some oddities that happen, and sometimes like 30-year bonds are actually cheaper than 10-year bonds, and some weird things happen in the market sometime. But in general, that's a true statement, Mayor.
Okay, and given that the Fed rate is essentially at his historic low, has that increased the amount of savings that the city will see from the first time that Councilmember Gonzalez and I reviewed this back in our ad hoc days?
Yes, we've been assured that by given the low interest rate, we should be seeing some savings overall. So yes, the answer to that question, Mayor, is yes.
And do you know the approximate savings that is guesstimated?
Not off the top of my head. That's something that we're going to be working on with our underwriter.
Okay. Well, I simply wanted to see, or I simply wanted to have this item presented in the event that council members have any questions. It seems fairly straightforward to me. I know the process is moving forward. And are there any questions, Councilmember Ballin?
No. And Diego, you give the quickest reports. And I think that's Nick's fault because the first time you had to give a report, he gave you like 5 seconds.
And he timed me.
And he did.
Thank you,
Great report. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, I should have gone to Councilmember Gonzalez first since he was on the ad hoc with me, but I will go to you second, knowing that you were intended to be first. Any questions?
Not a problem. No questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Mendoza
No questions. Thank you.
and Vice Mayor.
No questions.
Thank you. We are now at staff communication, including commission updates. And as is customary here, I know that we have a special addition to the San Fernando family, but I will let you handle the staff communication, Mr. Kimball.
Sure.
Share any good news.
Yeah. So yes, thank you. We have Mr. Howe joining us for the first time since returning from paternity leave, and he had a beautiful little daughter, Estelle, that was born a few weeks ago. So we want to congratulate you, Tim, on your new addition to the San Fernando family. So we're all happy to have her, and hopefully she'll be coming into the office helping you with some reports in the next 2 weeks.
I fully expect that. Thank you very much. I appreciate the sentiments.
Thank you.
And do you have any updates other than that, Tim, since you're on the phone, since he got you to unmute?
Yeah, I just want to recognize in the community development department, we do have one of our key team members retiring later this week. And I just want to recognize his tremendous work over 20 plus years for the city of San Fernando, Mr. Francisco Villalba, our building and safety supervisor. So we wish him the best of luck in all future endeavors.
Thank you.
And then Julian, I see you're on the call. If you have any staff updates.
Sure, thank you. I just would like to also acknowledge Virginia Dedeker on her retirement. She has over 20 years of experience providing the city with many great programs. She retired on the 15th, and we want to thank her for all her services. Also on this Saturday, we are going to have our second food distribution for all the families who had registered. We have approximately 170 families who have registered and will be receiving food boxes this weekend. Another thing is the Park Wellness and Recreation Committee met on the 10th, and we are working to establish a volunteer for the community theater, and that is progressing. We had a meeting last Thursday, and we're moving forward with that particular project. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baumgartner, any updates?
Just very quickly, Councilmember Mendoza had reached out to me last week with requesting an update on the methane leak at the Valley Generation Station in Sun Valley. And I let her know it was timely because I've been following their agendas for DWP, and they have a special meeting for tomorrow. They still don't have any kind of update that they're providing. And then following AQMD, the Air Quality Management District's investigation, they also have no new information. So I will be following up with the letter that council had asked us to direct towards them to give us updates on how the repairs are going, which were supposed to be completed in the month of November, as well as updates on any of their community outreach efforts at the systems that they were going to try to put in place to notify the city in the case of future leaks. So I'll be working on that this week.
Thank you. And Chief Iro?
I have none. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just real quickly, both Tim and Julian alluded to a couple employees they have retiring. Today, this Friday will be the last day We'll have a few more employees retiring pursuant to the retirement incentive program. We do, just so council knows, we have been providing each retiree. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we can't have a traditional sort of retirement party that we would otherwise have through a big gathering. So we're provided them all with a certificate of recognition, a mug with the city seal and their name and their dates of employment, as well as just a few little knickknacks and going away items for all of them. So we've been providing that upon their retirement date, and we are trying to put together a little video that we will share if we have it done for the the December 7th meeting. We would share at the very beginning of a little slideshow at the very beginning of the meeting to honor all those retiring. And then secondly, speaking of that December 7th meeting, we will be putting together sort of a plan on how that meeting, what we plan that meeting to look like from if there's a swearing in and certifying the election on that date. So staff will be in contact with council to provide that plan to you, as well as any candidates that we may have joining us that night. So that's all the update staff has.
Thank you. General council comments, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. First off, I guess we're closing out this mural ad hoc, I guess. Well, I guess not officially, because we brought it forward for for private property, but we do need one for public property. We essentially have it done. We just ran out of time and we're short staffed. Hopefully, I know we want to have a really short meeting for the December one. So hopefully, I don't know, possibly bring it, or whoever the next council members are, hopefully they support it. And then also, one of the things that I think that city council should take into consideration is when I originally started going over this with Brian so long ago, we talked about the possibility of adding a development fee that would be a slight percentage of whatever development is done, and that they would have to incorporate that amount of art into their project, or donate a fee that we can incorporate and create an art fund for the city of San Fernando. And I think Tim is versed on that as well. And hopefully we can look at doing something like that. And then also in the public murals that we're talking about, there's something called the licensing that we usually have for the artist sign. And that would allow us to license it so we can sell the art, whether we make postcards or whatever it may be. And I would love for the option on there to be able to have a piece possibly go to the artist, but also the funding to go directly back into an art fund. So that way we can continue to self-fund murals and art throughout the city. And then also I want to talk about the East San Fernando Transportation Corridor. So we had our East San Fernando Transportation Corridor, and they're talking about the implementation in 2021 of microtransit. Microtransit will be a Uber type system. And some of the great things about it is it will only cost $1 per trip, which is a lot cheaper than Uber. And they're looking at implementing it and having a max of a 15-minute wait. They're looking at doing smaller buses, kind of what you see our trolley system is right now, those style buses. And there's a specific grid that microtransit will operate inside. And some of the key locations that they want inside that grid are shopping centers, transit, connectivity, as well as schools. So I recommended that this area, because this area is not currently looked at for microtransit, to look into having this area as a microtransit, because we are connected to the Mission College, so many high schools, downtown San Fernando, as well as the Metrolink station here. So hopefully they'll be looking at that and bringing that forward in the next couple of years to come. And then also I mentioned if the East San Fernando Transportation Corridor is seeming to stop if they do a two-phase over on Van Nuys and not make its way down to the city of San Fernando. That should just give us more reason to have a microtransit, so we can have microtransit transport people getting off in Van Nuys to downtown San Fernando or also to the Metrolink station. If people are interested, they're researching the BRT right now from North Hollywood to Pasadena City College. Part of the discussion that I brought up obviously is the losing trees and replanting trees. And then the November 17th, they had an extension of public comment for what the East San Fernando Transportation Corridor, move it is to the November 17th. And the first and last mile for the East San Fernando Transit Corridor is up. I don't know if our staff has actually taken a look at it. I personally haven't taken a look at it. So I think we should definitely look at that because that's been one of the big things that we've been trying to fight for. And also keep in mind, remember last time we had Metro here and I kind of pushed them on allowing us to see if we can continue to do upgrades on the first mile, last mile for our local match, even regardless if we're getting the first phase or phase two, so it can all go towards our local match. So hopefully we have council to continue and staff to continue to push on that process for the future. And then also I had an Independent Cities Association meeting, and the Independent Cities Association, we have canceled our winter seminar for obvious reasons. And we're currently looking at doing a virtual conference. And so whoever may be the next board appointee to Independent Cities Association, I guess they will have the opportunity to work on that project with them as I close off that committee as well. That's all my liaison updates.
Thank you. Councilmember Mendoza.
Yeah. I just we have the young lady, Rosa Gutierrez, who submitted her public comment on the Mental Health Act of 2020. I'd like to place that, I'll probably be placing that on our next agenda. And Rosa Gutierrez is a USC grad, and Councilmember Ballin and I met with her, and she had brought up some great ideas that we need to, hopefully as the council will be able to act on. And want to congratulate all of those retirees. Won't be able to see many of them, but I wish them the best and great retirement. Retirement is great. I recommend it to anybody that can take that opportunity. And for everyone, please, a reminder to please wear your mask, stay safe, have safe holidays, follow the protocols, the guidelines from the state. And thank you, Matthew, also for the update on the methane leak. Appreciate it. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Ballin.
Well, I'm going to agree with Councilmember Mendoza. I've been retired 13 years. I kind of like retirement. I asked Nick, I have a question for you. But I got to go back and just say I really appreciated working with all the employees at the city, and I'm going to miss the retirees, but I'm lucky enough that many of them have shared their cell phone number with me, so I'm going to stay in touch with them. They're just a great group of people, and I will miss them. The city's going to change a little bit. We're going to be lean on employees and lean on getting things done, and we'll have to remember that and be very patient. But I know everyone that's left behind is going to pick up the slack. They're going to take on 2 or 3, 4 jobs, right, Nick? I have a question for you, Nick. We had discussed going back into chambers for the swearing in ceremony. And I'm thinking that's what you meant, that, we're not sure we're going to be able to do that or not, considering that the COVID cases are going up. What's your best guess?
My best guess is I'd really like to try to at least have council, have some sort of transition there, especially if there are new council members elected that are being sworn in. And maybe we can allow, their family into after the swearing to kind of take pictures, as family units.
Yes.
I do think so. So part of it is if we have the town hall streams completely working at that point, which we'll be able to live broadcast from the chambers, and we'll also need to, we have a few different technology ideas that we just need to test out on how we might be able to accomplish some of those.
Okay, that would be great. I want to ask you a question. This isn't in our city, but it affects everyone in the valley here. That off ramp, Sepulveda off ramp off the 118, there's so much trash that former Pizza Hut, I believe, it's a real problem. It's a den. It's just a den of, I'm thinking, you know what I'm saying. Be careful how I say it. I don't want to insult anyone. Why hasn't anything been done yet? I know that various agencies and electeds have been contacted, and now there's a level of frustration with people that have contacted other electeds and agencies outside of our city. So now they're coming to City of San Fernando and saying, help us. It's an eyesore for everyone. It's very dangerous. And what can we do as a city? Who can we reach out to? It is so wrong. It's demoralizing.
Yeah, actually, I take that route to work every day. And I get off this Sepulveda exit. So I know, first-hand experience, the area you're talking about. I think that's one of those, jurisdictional kerfuffles there. I believe it's Caltrans because it's part of the off-ramp. And you may remember Caltrans underneath the 118 on 4th Street. There was there was an encampment, and it took, that was spilling into San Fernando, and it took quite a bit of effort and time to address that, because oftentimes these areas get kind of mired in litigation, especially in a state-owned area. So we can definitely follow up. We've done that. We followed up with Caltrans and City of LA in other instances, and we can definitely put more pressure to ask what the plan is, what kind of services can be offered over there with regards to those individuals, and kind of we can definitely add our voice to that. But I believe that is a Caltrans jurisdictional area that you're talking about.
Okay, well, I think the assemblywoman and the councilwoman that represent that area, and the senator and the congressman, everybody should be a partner and come to some resolution there. The last thing I want to say, as far as Metropolitan Water District, I have a summary that I will send to the city clerk if anyone's interested in reading the summary. It is very insightful. It's just, there's 3 days of meetings, and it just would take me a long time to go over every one of those committees, but I do have a summary for you. And that's all I have to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. And while looking into that underpass, we should also figure out a solution for the sidewalks on Fox Street, because still so many residents believe that it's City of San Fernando's responsibility, but it's just odd that the homes are in the City of San Fernando, but the sidewalk is in the City of LA. It's one of the worst sidewalks you'll see in the entire county. But I think that I skipped over Councilmember Gonzalez when he wanted to have some general comments. Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes, thank you so much. I also want to thank staff and council for all the support, obviously, throughout the years, especially today. Today was really big. It means a lot to me to finally get this mural thing done. And it's kind of weird having this being my last council meeting, I guess, with me, because I still have one more meeting, but this one is more significant. So just thank you for all the staff throughout the years in council. And then also I would like to announce that I want to donate some community investment funds to go into murals. I've been holding off on it because the murals were not allowed, but now that they are, and I've actually been in talks with some of the family members of Eli Rodriguez, and obviously we know what happened years ago, and we talked way back then. I know Councilmember Balin and I were pretty heavily involved with the family at that time, and we talked about doing something back then as a memorial for the family and for Eli. And so I would just like to donate money to create a mural in remembrance of Eli and the situation. But I would also like to see if we can include his mother, obviously, who was going through her cancer and everything during that whole process. So Nick, I guess I'll work with you on that as well. And then also, Nick, I requested to donate some money to a while back to purchase the symbol for the American Legion, because we have the symbols that are on our entrance sign for the city of San Fernando when you come into the city of San Fernando off a brand, and it has like the Rotary and the Kiwanis and just different signs. I know Stormy was on me like crazy back then to get those up there, and we got them up there for Stormy. And now that I'm leaving, the American Legion has asked me to why they're not on there, and I know we've had discussions about putting it on there, so I also want to donate money to make sure that we can put their symbol on our welcome sign as well. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just walk over to my my charger here. I'm running out of battery. No real comments. Thank you so much to everybody. Thanks to staff for a long and productive meeting. Just briefly on the election, I'm very much looking forward to see the results. I think, it was a really tough campaign. And I think that when it comes down to it, and all the votes are counted, we will all see and congratulate President Trump's reelection. Just kidding, not really. I feel like it was definitely a trying election season, and I hope that San Fernando learns a lot about, electioneering and campaigning, and hopefully, we can welcome any and all new council members with open arms. I know to the voters of this city, we will vow to work with any and all new council members to help San Fernando continue be a leader in the valley, to fight for cleaner air, for cleaner water, more green space, better roads and everything. That's what we're all here for. And we're really, we champion the democratic process. So we're letting it play out, and we're really hopeful that, in the new year, we have a council that is very much keen on working on the issues for our residents. Besides that, thanks again, and looking forward to seeing everyone next time.
Thank you. Well, I am relieved to see that we have a new president who will be entering the White House in January. And I think that it couldn't have come soon enough. Even in spite of all of the corruption that we've seen in Washington, D.C., it really stuns me how close this election was. I think that in terms of percentages, the two candidates are only separated by 4, maybe 5%, whereas some prognosticators thought it might be double digits. It will not be the easiest time for President-elect Biden when he enters the White House. He will have to work with a Republican Senate and a very slim Democratic majority in the House. But at the very least, I think that the power that he brings to have executive orders will give so much relief to our communities, to immigrants, to people who need access to healthcare and clean air and water. And so for me, it was such a relief to see that our nation has corrected the course that it was on, and that our best days may still lie ahead. At the same time, I will admit that I am concerned by the public outrage in some parts of the country over Mr. Biden's election and the inability to accept the results for what they are. It really tears apart at our democracy. It merges truth with falsities and makes them almost indistinguishable. And I think that it has a very corrosive effect on who we are as a nation, on who we are as a people. But having said that, even with the challenges that Mr. Biden faces, I'm still looking forward to these next 4 years and see him give relief to our country and to work with nations near and far to bring great benefits and achieve great things for all of humanity. And so, having said that, that concludes my council comments for the day, for the night rather. It is 10:20 p.m. and I will move to adjourn our special San Fernando City Council meeting, and let the record reflect that the vice mayor did, his iPad did die and he lost connection at 10:19. So the motion to adjourn is now at 10:21. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Gonzalez. Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco is unable to vote right now, and Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are adjourned at 10:21 p.m. Good evening,
Thank you.
all.
Have a good night.